A man armed with a sword repeated the name of his beloved with despair and a loud cry, gripped by fear for her fate. In his thoughts, he returned again and again to one desire, for his beloved Xenia to return to him as soon as possible. Seeing the yellow silhouette of a girl flashing in the distance, the guy instantly felt a surge of excitement and without hesitation hurried towards her. The beauty with golden hair and shining blue eyes turned around and in a gentle voice called her beloved, whose name was Tsar. The knight was literally blinded by the radiance that emanated from the girl, as if her presence illuminated everything around. On the battlefield, dressed in snow-white robes and holding a sword, the maiden stood motionless, watching the sun slowly sink below the horizon, enveloping the earth in a soft golden light. A tear slid down the graceful female cheek, leaving a barely noticeable mark on her skin, filled with deep sadness and invisible sadness. Tsar could only watch in horror at the woman who was now looking at him with a look full of hatred, as if every glance of hers was filled with deep alienation and resentment. The lady no longer believed the man. Despite the cold aloofness, he rushed towards her, screaming desperately, trying to hold her and return what was lost. Tsar, with a deep pleading intonation, asked not to be left alone, begging not to be left alone with disturbing thoughts and fears. The sword was thrown mercilessly, as if representing the ruthlessness and coldness that emanated from its owner. The gun was aimed at the man with one single purpose: to deliver a blow that would leave no chance of salvation. A guy in loose clothes sat motionless next to her, looking thoughtfully at his hand, as if trying to find answers to unclear questions that were tormenting his mind. Handsome woke up from a strange dream, and looking around, noticed something unusual nearby that immediately attracted attention. Near my bare legs on the cold floor, an inexorably sparkling, sharp blade lay attracting attention with its threatening immobility and reminding me of possible danger. Tsar made a promise to himself that this time he would definitely protect his beloved, no matter what difficulties or cost it might require. A vivid image of a beauty with fiery red hair, a sweet smile, and a lovely long dress appeared in my memory, which again awakened warm memories. The village woke up at dawn when the first rays of the sun painted small houses standing close to each other against the backdrop of a green lawn. Xenia, with a tool of rural work in her hands, stood menacingly staring at the stranger and asking who he was and what brought him to this place. In front of her, on his knees and covered in tears of joy, stood a man who, despite the storm of emotions, admitted with trepidation and delight that he had finally found his long-awaited and only beloved day. Quietly, and with a certain degree of excitement, Tsar admitted to the girl that he came here with the sole purpose of returning her so that together they could overcome all the obstacles and separations that separated them. The lady rose early at dawn to go to the henhouse and collect the eggs, and then prepare them for breakfast, enjoying the simple pleasures of the morning time. A small farmer's house stood in a cozy clearing where the main character lived, surrounded by green spaces and quiet corners of nature. Her name was Xenia Sunset Hill. She was 20 years old, and she firmly decided not to give up on her goal, despite all the difficulties and obstacles that were encountered along the difficult path. The villager really wanted to escape somewhere far away from her native village and family, who constantly talked about marriage and gain freedom to follow her own dreams and desires. Burdened with caring for two younger brothers and dreaming of golden eggs, the lady decided to come down to earth and return to her usual everyday affairs in order to once again immerse herself in her daily life and responsibilities. The girl's attention was attracted by a strange man who went racing on a horse early in the morning. The guy's unusual behavior and extravagant appearance stood out against the background of the usual morning calm, arousing curiosity. Citing that there was a fire somewhere, Xenia hurriedly returned to collecting eggs, trying to avoid any possible consequences of this incident. But then the villager noticed that a strange stranger had stopped nearby, carefully observing the actions, which made her wary and worried. With one graceful movement, the aristocrat jumped off his horse, landing lightly and confidently on the ground, which emphasized his elegance and ability to carry himself in any situation. Breathing heavily after an exhausting run, he stopped and, bowing his head, fixed a sad look on the beautiful lady, full of experiences and emotions, as if this look could convey the entire heaviness of his heart. Surprised, Xenia watched with genuine interest, the man approaching her. Outstanding beauty and refined grace fascinated her, arousing awe and curiosity. Stepping back as Tsar approached her, the lady tried to figure out who he was and what he wanted, watching every movement with curiosity and wariness. The aristocrat himself, tears rolling down his cheeks in large drops, extended his hand to his beloved, and with a trembling voice repeated that he could not believe his own eyes. This moment seemed so incredible. Unable to maintain his balance, the man with trembling legs and with inexpressible horror on his face slowly fell onto the soft grass, as if deprived of his last strength. Without thinking for long, Xenia, noticing the stranger kneeling in front of her in a begging pose, instantly mistook the guy for a madman. Frightened, the maiden asked about the well-being of the strange man. The woman's voice trembled with anxiety, and her face was distorted with an expression of misunderstanding and compassion. The expression on the man's face made the girl's heart chill for a moment, and she didn't feel very good, although she was ready to help him if it was in her power. Immediately, Tsar, respectfully bending his whole body with a pleading expression on his face, made a request. Every movement and gesture was full of respect and despair. With a plaintive note in his voice and complete sincerity in every word, he asked for her hand and heart, begging his beloved to agree to become his wife and share his life. Continuing to cry, the aristocrat admitted that for a long time he had been crazy about the lovely maiden whose charm and invisible magic had captured a man's heart. The words of this young man seemed almost mystical because he was ready to endure any blows of fate and even contempt from his beloved. Grabbing his companion by the legs, Tsar, with the deepest emotion, and sincerely made a request full of passion and despair. The nobleman begged the lady to become his wife, promising all-encompassing devotion and love. Screaming in fear, Xenia hit the stranger with a stick with all her might, and overcome with rage, called her a pervert, trying to protect herself from his unexpected actions. The whole family, in alarm and worry, quickly ran out to help their daughter. The faces of the relatives were full of determination and care. Each of them was ready to do everything possible to protect their daughter. Despite the presence of the whole family, the man with a determined expression on his face did not back down, and boldly taking a step forward, asked for the hand and heart of a sweet girl. Having replaced anger with embarrassment, the mother, slightly blushing from surprise, hesitantly asked her daughter if this charming and brave man was her suitor. Xenia immediately began to deny everything, hastily declaring that she was seeing this guy for the first time and did not understand at all what they were talking about. With an absolutely serious expression on his face, the aristocrat, introducing himself by his full name, Tsar Nathan Ardiel, declared that he was destined to become the lover of this lady. The peasant woman instantly plunged into a storm of indignation. Her eyes lit up with rage when she saw how this stranger, without shame or conscience, dared to impersonate the vile duke. When the girl's parents decided to expel the strange man, two aristocrats arrived on horseback, confidently descending to the ground with a noble appearance and a willingness to intervene in the situation. They quickly approached their master, amazed at how the commoners dared to show insolence towards the duke himself, and their indignation boiled with indignation and surprise. A guy with red hair, dressed in the armor of a red wing knight, stood with a proud look, while next to him was a man in a white robe who was a recognized genius of magic throughout the country. Showing no mercy to the intruders who invaded their home, Xenia began swinging the stick, sparing no one, and striking left and right. Tsar carefully watched what was happening from the sidelines, without interfering, and noticing that his beloved girl doubted the words of the aristocrat, he decisively declared that he was ready to prove his sincere intentions. The knight with fiery red hair informed the lord that the eagerly awaited mounted cavalry was expected to arrive shortly, ready to take action. It began to dawn on the peasant woman that all the words spoken by the man not only sounded plausible, but had every chance of turning out to be true reality. Soon knights appeared, who, turning to their master, were ready to carry out any orders and take part in the upcoming events. It turned out that all the words of the aristocrat were not just the truth, but a true revelation that sounded like a sparkling light in a foggy night, giving weight to each phrase. The duke declared that he would stubbornly seek the villagers' consent until she accepted the offer, despite all the obstacles and resistance. Bowing his head in front of an ordinary commoner, The man was ready to make any sacrifice and make every effort to get consent and become her chosen one. Leaning against the wall, Xenia sighed heavily. The woman sitting next to her at the table had already heard the latest news and was ready to discuss it with her. The girl herself was no longer as confident in her refusal as before when it came to the issue of marriage, especially after discussions and pressure from friends. Sitting next to the aristocrat, the question hung in the air as to why he chose such a daughter-in-law, leaving everyone waiting for an explanation for his unusual choice. Xenia saw this man in expensive clothes for the first time, and the exquisite outfit and impressive appearance immediately attracted her attention, leaving a deep impression. Much to the surprise of everyone present, Tsar unexpectedly agreed that they were indeed strangers to each other, despite all the rumors and speculation that had previously circulated. Suddenly, the lady's mother intervened in the couple's conversation and asked worriedly about the guarantee that the nobleman would not take back his words after the wedding. Tsar, having thought and considered all aspects, agreed to take the oath in the church, realizing the importance and sacredness of this moment. Everyone froze in complete shock at these words. Their faces expressed surprise and indescribable emotion, as if they could not believe what they had just heard. Everyone froze in complete shock at these words. Their faces expressed surprise and indescribable emotion, as if they could not believe what they had just heard. Xenia felt fear and anxiety that such an intimidating man dared to ask for her hand, causing confusion and internal struggle in her Sue. Suddenly, the girl's attention was attracted by the words of her friend, who reminded her of the local merchant's son, who often approached her with proposals for marriage. After this, the woman with dark hair said that she had notified her boyfriend that Xenia would be delayed, and therefore he would only be able to appear at the closing of the establishment, when all the conversations would have calmed down and the visitors would begin to leave. Here the peasant woman quickly ran, hoping to escape before she ran into an old acquaintance who might suddenly appear and disrupt her plans. James continued to worry whether the rumors about the Duke were true and whether there was an incident involving a commoner. Having received confirmation from her, he began to excitedly talk about how this girl was simply destined to become his wife, and there was confidence in his voice. Feeling deeply disgusted, Xenia began to scream loudly, demanding that James let go of her hand, unable to contain her emotions, and desperate desire to get rid of her tight grip. Suddenly, in a moment of tense silence, a hand quickly touched the man's cheek sharply and firmly slapped him in the face, which left a clear trace of anger and irritation on his face. Without looking back, Xenia, overcome with anger and despair, began to run through the tangled streets of the city. The steps sounded like a cry of internal pain and desire for liberation. Having opened the door of her house, the girl, with slight excitement and confident intonation, loudly announced her return, forcing the residents to immediately pay attention to her presence. The mother turned to her daughter, and with relief and joy in her voice, told her that the fugitive had finally returned home. Looking around, Xenia began to look for the Duke, who, as it turned out, was in her grandmother's room, having decided to spend the night there. With a sigh, the mother said that the aristocrat would most likely remain in their house until he received the consent of his beloved. Her words sounded with a slight tinge of sadness and understanding. When the woman added about the clause of financial compensation after the divorce, the girl was happy, saying that she was not going to tolerate a stranger just like that. At that moment, the door swung open, and the father and his younger children entered loudly, declaring that he was against this marriage, considering it too strange and not in accordance with their expectations and traditions. Standing in one place, the Duke seemed lost in thought, his stoic and unshakable presence emphasizing his inner determination and readiness to make an important decision. Looking at the attractive young man, Xenia inquired with obvious interest how long he had been patiently waiting for her. The woman's voice was filled with genuine curiosity. Tesser shrugged, not remembering exactly how long he stood at the entrance, although he could have at least knocked to warn of his presence and avoid an awkward situation. However, the aristocrat could not simply enter the house and disturb his beloved's sleep, realizing that this would be extremely inappropriate and would disturb her peace. Xenia closed her eyes from the bright radiance that emanated from the nobleman. The blinding light seemed to envelop him, forcing her eyes to involuntarily close in an attempt to protect herself from the sudden glare. Confusedly, the peasant woman admitted that she was not going to categorically refuse the strange man's proposal, but she needed time to think about the situation and make an informed decision. These touching words brought tears to the guy's eyes, which quickly began to roll down his cheeks, revealing deep emotions and a touching reaction to what was said. Virgo asked the interlocutor to calm down, explaining that she had one more condition that she would like to discuss before making a final decision. Thinking that he would have to part with some part of his body, be it a leg or an arm, Tsar asked which one his beloved was choosing, expressing his anxiety and uncertainty about the upcoming choice. If Xenia wanted, the aristocrat would be willing to give her a castle in her honor, an emperor's coffin, and a dragon's heart, eager to express his deep respect and admiration. Grabbing the man's hand, the girl paused, ordering him to listen carefully. The voice was full of urgency and determination to convey important words. The peasant woman had much simpler demands. She needed to help her family with work on the farm. These tasks were not so difficult, but required diligence and dedication to support the work of the family farm. A joyful smile appeared on the man's face, and with a slight hint of excitement, he asked if this was all that was required in order to win the hand and heart of his beloved. Tsar was ready to fulfill all the demands, as well as any other desires of the sweet girl, showing his willingness to go to any lengths for her happiness and satisfaction. The aristocrat, despite his pompous role in society and universal recognition, was determined to go out into the backyard to personally feed his chickens, thus showing care and simplicity. The hens, looking haggard and weakened from the constant and harsh collection of eggs carried out by the Duke, without regard to their physical condition and needs, were now in urgent need of rest and care. Xenia, shocked, looked at the guy, who despite the hard physical work, looked not only fresh and clean, but also attractive, which seemed completely inappropriate for his fatigue. Modestly but decisively, the girl asked her interlocutor to rest a little while. She thought about a new job for him, so that he could recover and prepare for the next tasks. Some time passed. Straightening her hair with her hand, Xenia asked the man with interest if he was bored while waiting. Having obeyed the instructions of his beloved, the Duke sat down under a spreading tree. His back felt the coolness of the tree bark, and he plunged into deep thoughts. It was quite enough for the aristocrat to watch his beloved so as not to feel time. Her every gesture, every movement was like an eternity for him in which he could forget about the world and its worries. The embarrassed commoner looked away. Her pretty cheeks turned pink, and her eyes modestly stared at the ground, trying to hide her awkwardness. The two of them headed down the city road, striking up a conversation about how the Duke was settling into his new home, sharing details and impressions of each change. Xenia worried whether the new home had comfortable beds, soft pillows, and other necessary amenities, imagining how the guy would relax after long days, and hoping that everything would be done with attention to detail and comfort. Tsar admitted that he did not try to gain the maiden's trust in this way, and really did not feel any discomfort. He made a solemn promise that he had never told a lie, assuring everyone of his absolute honesty and sincerity. The Virgin was sincerely glad to hear such words, because she could not stand deceivers and always valued sincerity and truthfulness as a rare and valuable gift in a world full of lies and hypocrisy. Tsar already knew that Xenia hated lies and intrigue, and this surprised her companion, because the desire for honesty and sincerity was deeply rooted in her nature. Listening to such touching words, the commoner could not believe the rumors that called the Duke a monster and a bad person, because the woman's heart was filled with trust in his sincerity and nobility. After this, the lady, unable to restrain her curiosity, asked the man what was the reason for the frequent tears, because his emotional swings caused her deep concern. The aristocrat, being a man with refined taste and deep emotions, would also be interested in the answer, since he noticed such manifestations of feelings only in the presence of his beloved. After such words, the girl felt extremely guilty, realizing that her actions may have been inappropriate and caused pain, causing her to doubt her own actions. Gently and carefully, her hand like a cloud slid to his face, to gently wipe away his tears with the handkerchief that Xenia carefully held in her hands. The girl, with trepidation and care, whispered to the man not to cry, and then looking at him in surprise, asked the question whether this was really their first meeting. Tesser, with awe and slight surprise in his voice, agreed that this was the first time that his beloved was so close and so kind to him, as if this moment was filled with magic and tenderness. When she carefully asked whether this meeting was his first, the aristocrat only remained silent, leaving him with the thought that this silence could hide many unexpressed emotions and deep feelings. Turning away, the lady did not bother the Duke with unnecessary questions, preferring to give him time and space to think. Sometimes it is better to let a person sort out his thoughts himself. Pointing her finger in the direction into the distance, Senya with a smile invited them to walk together along the picturesque road that led to the market and school where she works. Silently, the nobleman nodded in agreement with the proposed idea, his cold gaze full of attentive approval. The villager thought to herself that perhaps her resemblance to the Duke's former lover was so significant that it became the reason for his deep memories and hidden emotions. First, the girl suggested going to school to resolve issues that needed to be discussed in this important and familiar place for them. Politely, Senya asked her new acquaintance to wait some more time until she collected all the necessary things and was ready to continue their meeting. The man, noticing the lady whom he had been waiting for so long, and finally saw instantly, became alert as soon as the fragile figure became visible on the horizon, causing him anxiety and tension. A strong male hand grabbed her, not allowing her to take a single step, like the confident grip of an iron manipulator unwilling to let go of his prey. This vile man turned out to be James, who, having shown all his vile essence, decided to take his bride by force regardless of anything, and sparing no one. The commoner was deeply indignant that the girl was ready to marry the first person she met, and not him despite all his efforts and feelings invested in this love. Senya was proud and independent, and therefore would prefer to remain alone than to marry a man like him who does not deserve respect and love. James, enraged, and with his hand raised, shouted that he wanted to hit his ex-lover, while admitting that he only dated her for her pretty face, seeing nothing more in her. Without showing an ounce of mercy, the girl single-mindedly directed her action at the weak spot on the man's pants, intending to cause him painful suffering and cause him to cry out in desperate pain. But then suddenly, another hand grabbed the guy's arm, stopping him and preventing him from harming the lady with red hair, like an invisible barrier protecting him from further violence. James began to shake from unbearable pain, and one lonely tear rolled down from his eye, symbolizing the deep inner suffering and bitterness of disappointment overwhelming his soul. The Duke mercilessly held the villager's hand, not letting go of him, despite the fact that he was groaning from unbearable pain and physical force applied to his body. With cold fury, Tsar asked the guy what he was going to do with the beautiful lady, clearly outraged by the bad intentions and showing absolute contempt for his actions. But Senya managed to forget how threatening and scary this man was, absorbed in her pride and desire for independence, not noticing the danger that again arose in front of her. The aristocrat turned out to be the same evil duke, about whom there were rumors that he was capable of the most terrible and terrible acts, sometimes beyond the bounds of imagination. Noticing the fear on the girl's face, Tsar rushed to her, begging for forgiveness and trying to correct the situation in order to atone for his previous mistakes and regain trust. Caringly, the guy asked if the events had frightened her, showing sincere concern for her condition and trying to make sure that the maiden was not harmed by what happened. Senya lied, saying that everything was fine, trying to hide her true condition and not succumb to the guy's show of concern. James spent the entire time trembling on the ground, trying to come to his senses and restore his condition after being subjected to terrible pain and suffering. The Duke apologized for his lateness, not knowing that the villager already had someone in mind for marriage. The lady simply waved the apology aside, clearly not feeling much interest in these words. When he came to his senses, the commoner began to look around in confusion, first at the floor, then at the people standing in a row, as if trying to understand what was happening around him and find his place in this chaos. When the aristocrat was about to attack the guy, Senya stopped the interlocutor, not wanting him to continue his aggressive actions and further aggravate the situation. Suddenly, James spoke up, arguing that the girl should thank him, since no one would ever want to marry such an old maid again, trying to humiliate her and undermine her dignity. Senya felt anger begin to consume the lady, like a dark wave trying to consume all of her consciousness and emotions, leaving only rage and determination. After that, in search of consolation and support, she pressed herself against the strong hand of the aristocrat, trying to find peace and a sense of security in such a touch. Smiling sweetly, the girl with a gentle sparkle in her eyes confidently declared that she intended to become a countess, despite all the obstacles and difficulties that she might encounter. Turning to the Duke with a confident smile, she gently but decisively announced that she would soon become his bride, promising to overcome all obstacles on the way to this important event. Hope and warmth shone in the aristocrat's eyes, like the reflection of the first rays of the dawn sun on the calm surface of the lake. Pressed against the man's hand, the lady, with an insistent and pleading look, literally asked him to play along, as if this was the only thing that could make the evening unforgettable and full of joy. The man, without hesitation for long, confidently promised that if she agreed to become his wife, he would fulfill any of her wishes, ready to do everything to make her dreams come true. Flushed red with embarrassment, the lady giggled and pointed this out to her ex-fiancé, feeling both awkward and relieved at the unexpected situation. Moreover, it was easy to destroy one street rat, as the lady put it, hinting at a scoundrel who did not deserve either her attention or respect. James trembled with fear, afraid to utter even one word, as if each of them could lead to irreparable consequences. When the man left, the girl's face changed, becoming serious and tired, as if her mood and inner world had changed dramatically with his departure. Shyly, like a modest peasant woman, she moved away from the aristocrat, giving him space and allowing him to feel more comfortable in this awkward situation. After that, when asked about marriage, she gave her consent with trepidation and slight excitement, feeling how her big heart was filled with joy and excitement from the decision made. Xenia was surprised to learn about the possibility of having a secret lover, but the only condition for this was her agreement to marry the Duke. The guy had no right to ask for love. His desires were more modest. He just wanted to be close to feel a woman's warmth and presence. The peasant woman was completely bewildered, not understanding why, among the many ladies of the world, Tsar chose her. A strong hand reached out to the fragile one, wanting to support, as if it was looking for consolation and support in this tender and vulnerable gesture. Finally, the Duke admitted that this was the only way to protect the girl, sincerely explaining that such actions were dictated by a deep desire to ensure safety and well-being. Realizing that this was the moment when her feelings and circumstances reached the point where there was no longer any doubt, Xenia finally gave her consent to the marriage, realizing the significance and sincerity of this decision. The girl was finally convinced that Tsar was destiny, realizing that their paths had not crossed by chance, and that their relationship was destined to become an important part of the lady's life. The aristocrat could not help but notice that this time, his beloved was more serious than ever. Her gaze and mannerisms became especially deep and concentrated, as if she was making an important decision or realizing the significance of the moment. Xenia really didn't understand why Tsar decided to marry an ordinary commoner. The lady thought that perhaps the man would cry again, realizing the complexity and difficulties of such a choice. But instead of tears, the Duke smiled widely, radiating joy and satisfaction. The choice brought him indescribable happiness and inner peace. The villager was worried, because she did not know the rules of etiquette and manners. But Tsar confidently stated that he was ready to kill anyone who dared laugh at her, ready to protect her honor and dignity at any cost. The father and his youngest son were deeply excited and carefully watched in front of them, immersed in their thoughts and experiences. Every moment required special attention and concentration. Silky red hair was neatly pinned with a beautiful precious hairpin, which glittered, emphasizing the sophistication of the hairstyle. Xenia struck with her beauty like the morning dawn illuminating the world with its bright and delicate shades, and every glance was attached to her exquisite grace and charm. The family couldn't believe that their own daughter was standing in front of them. She was so transformed and beautiful that it seemed as if they were seeing the baby in a completely new light. It turned out that they were going to go with her of their own free will. It was he himself who offered this to them, showing care and desire to share this important moment with them. The peasant woman herself could not believe that finally, after marriage in front of the church, she would leave the village. My heart was filled with emotion and excitement from the realization that life would soon change. Soon people on horses appeared. These were the Duke's guards who kept order and ensured security during the important event. Among them stood the blurred figure of a stately man on a horse, whose majestic posture and elegant attire attracted everyone's attentions. It was the beautiful Tsar, who came to pick up his bride, radiating confidence and majesty, like a knight ready to embark on a new journey with his beloved. With a smile, the maiden said that she had also been waiting for this moment, expressing joy and relief that the long-awaited event had finally happened. The Church of the God of Order appeared on the horizon, white and tall, its majestic tower reaching into the heavens, symbolizing spiritual direction and stability. Xenia sat on a chair with the Duke, checking documents and applications. She studied the papers intently to make sure everything was in order and met the necessary requirements. A strange man with closed eyes asked to extend his hands. His voice was mysterious and a little insistent, creating an atmosphere of uncertainty and expectation. Obediently, the pair held out their palms, ready to receive whatever might follow, awaiting instructions or the mysterious action that was about to take place. Having uttered mysterious and strange words, as if emanating from an ancient spell, the priest raised his hand from which a bright glow suddenly shone, filling the surrounding space with extraordinary light. The girl felt strange when she suddenly heard a voice that softly and persistently called her child, as if from the depths of the past, which filled her soul with an uneasy feeling. Her face was distorted with surprise when he, with obvious interest and excitement, asked if she had found happiness in this life, as if he was looking for the answer to a mysterious question. The Duke, returning from his thoughts to reality, gently asked the girl if everything was all right, trying to make sure that she was feeling well. Xenia hastened to reassure her interlocutor, assuring him that everything was fine. It just seemed like an eternity had passed, when in fact it was just a moment. The priest, with solemn respect, confirmed the marriage, officially consolidating the union of the newlyweds and emphasizing the significance of this important moment in their lives. He also mysteriously reminded that the God of Order has always been watching over them and continues to bless their future path. During a conversation about the well-being of his companion, the aristocrat apologized for not being able to prepare the ring for official registration, which could have created some inconvenience. The servant opened the door for the lady, while she spoke of her strength and determination, claiming that she could receive the ring during the wedding ceremony itself. With great respect and grace, the gentleman extended his hand to the lady, offering her his support, as if inviting her to share a moment of special significance and emphasizing his noble style of address. Tessa agreed, realizing that Xenia could easily jump to the ground from the second floor, demonstrating her agility and confidence. The lady was embarrassed when she remembered that she had recently committed a similar act after school, jumping from a height, which emphasized her unusual determination and courage. Sitting in the carriage, the girl blushed with embarrassment and promised that this would not happen again, while being surprised that the sword masters could show such inappropriate impudence. The Duke himself was not against seeing this side of his beloved, finding her courage and determination only more attractive. Awkwardly, the lady reminded her companion that such behavior at the Duchess's estate would not only be highly inappropriate, but also highly inappropriate since it would violate the expectations of others. Suddenly, the word henpecked sounded coming from outside the carriage. It was so loud that everyone nearby could hear it. Looking out of the window, the Duke asked in surprise what his servant the magician meant, who confirmed the words that he considered the master under his thumb. The healer snorted irritably and moved on. Tsar asked the girl not to pay attention to him, trying to avoid further awkward situations. The lady shrugged this off with a slight grin, remembering how the last time she pounced on the magician with pleasure and determination, which left her with a feeling of confidence and satisfaction. This man also reminded the lady of an old acquaintance, which added even more confidence to her and brought back vivid memories, causing nostalgia and warm emotions. Moreover, the lady was very worried about that voice in the carriage, and Tsar noticed how the girl tiredly closed her eyes, trying to cope with the growing tension. Day gradually gave way to night, and stars began to shine in the dark sky, each of which added its own special sparkle and magical charm to the night picture. The lady was awakened by the insistent touch of a man's hand, which gently but confidently disturbed her sleep, attracting attention and arousing curiosity. It turned out that they had arrived not so long ago, and the Duke wanted to carry his companion in his arms, but this would have been extremely rude on his part, violating the rules of politeness and respect. After which he suggested that she take her time and get herself in order when leaving the carriage so that she could look her best and feel confident. Tsar was already waiting for her there, surrounded by many servants who stood at the entrance, bowing their heads respectfully as a sign of deep respect and readiness to help creating an atmosphere of due acceptance and care. The maids moved to one side, and the servants of young men moved to the other, leaving the chief manager, who stood in the center, showing his importance and responsibility for organizing the process. For the girl, it was as if another world had opened up. The lady looked in amazement at the carefully organized surroundings, realizing the incredible sophistication and grandeur. One of the servants, curious and with slight excitement, asked the master if this girl was the one who was supposed to come with him and become the new mistress, which added intrigue to the moment of anticipation. Tsar agreed and asked the servants to take care of her, to which they readily agreed. At this moment, Xenia, watching what was happening in surprise, only shook her head from side to side, not believing in the reality of what was happening. The servant introduced herself as Soled Northcliffe, daughter of the mansion manager, and displaying all the manners of a true professional, offered to show the new mistress to a room that had been carefully prepared for her arrival. The man confirmed that the time was already very late, and therefore the companion could calmly leave to enjoy a well-deserved rest. Xenia was pleasantly surprised by the expensive and elegant furniture that surrounded her in this sophisticated interior, with chic finishes and sophisticated design, emphasizing the luxury and sophistication of the environment. When the servants began to open the gate, it turned out that behind them was a double door, which unexpectedly expanded the space and added an element of mystery to what was happening. There inside, the maids were already carefully organizing the mistress's belongings, putting each item in order, with careful attention to detail. The bed was large and incredibly comfortable, with a soft mattress and luxurious pillows, providing the ultimate in comfort and relaxation. Before leaving, Solette, with a show of sincere concern, said that if the owner needed any help or support, she should definitely let her know. Mia and Daisy were the hostess's personal maids, two sweet girls dressed in neat uniforms that showed their professionalism and dedication to their work. The girls approached the lady, who with a slight sigh and a peaceful expression on her face, ordered them to go and rest, since she did not need anything at the moment. However, the attentive maids noticed how tired the hostess looked and decided to send her to a bath with warm water so that she could relax and regain her strength. Tired and red from the warmth of the water, Xenia emerged from the bath, feeling her muscles relax and tension go away, feeling renewed and refreshed, ready to fall into a deep and restful sleep. With a quick step, the maiden walked towards the bed, eager to do what she had long wanted, with a slight excitement in her soul and anticipation of the long-awaited rest, which promised to bring her peace and comfort. Rolling around in the bed in the sheet, Xenia enjoyed every minute of this pleasant moment, enjoying the softness of the bed linen and feeling how fatigue was leaving. Suddenly, the lady's joyful mood was interrupted by a knock on the door. Opening it, she suddenly encountered a man who was right in front of her. There stood the embarrassed Duke, who had arrived late with his companion, apologizing for the late visit and asking forgiveness for the unexpected interruption of privacy. It turned out that the Duke was worried about comfort and suggested replacing the lady's bed with a larger one, which caused her to giggle. Turning away, Xenia asked the Duke to be silent. Otherwise, she was ready to die of shame. The woman's face turned red and her heart beat faster from the awkwardness of the situation. The aristocrat took the lady's words to heart and with a tinge of embarrassment asked not to speak like that. The man sincerely regretted his inappropriate proposal and wanted to make sure that her feelings were not hurt. The guy was pleased that he was able to satisfy the desire of his new wife, and this started a conversation. The lady in turn was interested in the reasons for the conversation at such a late hour and tried to understand what led to this unexpected visit. Closing the door to her chambers, she invited the nobleman to come inside to continue the conversation in a more private and calm environment where they could discuss all issues without unnecessary interruptions and glances. Together, they entered the room and sat down at the table, which was set for conversation in a cozy atmosphere. In this calm corner, they could concentrate on the conversation and discuss all the issues that interested them. Sitting in a chair, the man began to ask what else his companion might need, besides a bed, trying to make sure that she felt completely comfortable and all her needs were taken into account. Smiling sweetly, Senia assured him that everything was fine, and she didn't think she deserved such special and attentive treatment. The words were full of sincere gratitude. The aristocrat hastened to convince his beloved, arguing that she deserved it much more than anyone else, and that her dignity and beauty made her the only one who could claim such a privilege. After which he added that the lady should not have thought about such a trifle, because the girl's true meaning and place in the world are much more important. The Duke strongly recommended that she not be shy about asking for more, and the more she communicated with this man, the more clearly she realized how deep and multifaceted the aristocrat was. It turned out that the nobleman hired new people, especially for her, who could be trusted. Among them were a good-natured local potter and several other reliable people. The Duke smiled in response to her words, confirming that Nana and Solette were truly people who could be trusted and who were ready to support in any situation. Slowly, Tsar extended his hand forward, but his movement was not just mechanical. It was as if he was trying to convey with his gesture all his thoughts and intentions, giving the moment special significance. After which, the Duke added that all these people were ready to sacrifice their throats and give their lives in order to protect him from any danger and carry out any orders. It was a shock for the girl to realize that these workers could become not only reliable support for her, but also real allies in difficult times. Senia thanked the nobleman from the bottom of her heart, and his unexpected reaction, tears that he could not hold back, scared her a little, but also deeply touched her. The man apologized for his behavior, and in response, the lady, wiping the man's cheeks with her dress, reassured the guy, saying that everything was fine and there was no reason to worry. Senia convinced her companion that she would be by his side and support him in all difficulties. She assured the aristocrat that he copes with all tasks perfectly and can fully count on her. Tsar admitted that despite the fact that he knew his beloved well enough, he could not imagine that she was capable of so easily and sincerely showing care, warmth, and attention to complete strangers. Senia, smiling slightly embarrassedly, began to make excuses, explaining that her caring and sensitive nature was due to the fact that she had two younger brothers whom she raised since childhood. The Duke did not at all object to her touches, and with a slight smile asked the beauty to touch him more often. Gentle touches brought him an amazing feeling of peace and comfort. The lady was deeply concerned about what others would think if they noticed their closeness, because in the eyes of society, this could cause a storm of discussion and censure. A strong, confident hand slowly reached out to the gentle, graceful hands of her companion, as if trying to surround the girl with warmth and support, giving a feeling of security and quiet understanding. After this, the lady, immersed in her thoughts, listened carefully, as the guy calmly explained that a true aristocrat should not worry about other people's opinions. He added that it was time to go to bed. Morning came, and the house was filled with soft light that penetrated every room through the windows, illuminating the space with warm rays and giving everything around a special feeling of freshness. One of the maids came to the mistress, and with a slight smile said that she had brought clothes of a looser cut, as she preferred, so that they were comfortable and did not fit the figure. The servants helped the hostess braid her hair carefully, selecting each strand, and at the same time noticed that she could suggest another outfit that would be suitable for that day. Dressed in a new dress, Senia couldn't take her eyes off the mirror, amazed at how much clothes can change a person's perception and highlight their inner essence. The maids began to assure that dressing their mistress was not just a duty for them, but a real pleasure, because every detail of clothing brought joy and pride in their work. Suddenly, the company was interrupted by Solette, who appeared at the door looking sternly at everyone present and attracting attention with her imperious and persistent gaze. With his quiet presence, the butler suddenly frightened those present, interrupting their conversation. He, pretending that nothing had happened, looked at them questioningly and discreetly asked what they would like to bring the hostess for breakfast. Xenia agreed without hesitation to the offer to accompany her husband to dinner, realizing that this could be a pleasant moment to strengthen their relationship. The servant, bowing obediently, replied that she would definitely convey the words to the master and carry out the order with due attention. The butler also wanted to tell more about the new lady's house and give her a tour so that she could become better acquainted with every corner and features of its furnishings. After eating, Xenia went outside and headed to the garden to enjoy the fresh air and the peaceful atmosphere of the green spaces. The house was large, significantly larger than the house of the girl's parents, and its majestic outlines emphasized the importance and prestige of the Duke. After walking through the garden and exploring the house, they returned to the room where they had a little more time to chat before the evening's events began. Following the servant, the lady thought that everyone would hate her, but to her surprise, everyone turned out to be extremely friendly and welcoming, which helped her feel more confident and comfortable. Soleil turned to her mistress, noticing how she was deeply immersed in her thoughts. Her gaze was focused and thoughtful, as if she was looking for answers to complex questions. When asked how the butler knew about the arrival of the new mistress, Soleil replied that as soon as the aristocrat became duke, he immediately communicated his intentions and plans so that everyone was aware and could prepare properly. Together, they headed to the library, where Xenia was supposed to study. It was a cozy room filled with the aroma of old books and silence conducive to concentration and immersion in study. The butler admitted that all this had been carefully prepared, especially for the lady by the house staff. Every element from the furnishings to the smallest details was thought out, taking into account her needs and preferences. Bowing her head to the papers on the table, the girl carefully asked if Solette had also been carefully prepared. The voice was filled with sincere interest and slight wariness. The servants replied that this was the Duke's order. Every step of the preparation, including attention to detail and care for the new residents, was carefully planned at his direction. Xenia mentally compared Soleil to her new husband, and feeling a warm attraction to their family, quietly said that she would like to become part of their family. Bowing his head with deep respect, the butler said that the master's word for him was not just a request, but a real order, which he obeyed unconditionally. Before leaving the premises, the lady added that she had high hopes for Solette's support and assistance, counting on her competence and attentiveness to her needs. Noticing the lady's interest in one of the doors, the butler explained that this door leads to the master's library, which is a treasury of rare books and knowledge. The lady was given access to her husband's office at any time, and the servant explained that he often visited this place for work, immersing himself in business and studying important documents. The hand gently touched the papers neatly scattered on the table, feeling their rustle and fragility as if each page contained a part of history and important decisions. Thus, Xenia realized that the Duke was left-handed, and also, judging by the books, an educated man, since his written records and collection of books indicated deep intellect and wide knowledge. This was a real surprise for the girl. She had not expected to see such an unusual selection of books, which demonstrated not only the erudition, but also the deep interests and preferences of the aristocrat. A small boy ran up to Soleil, and she had to move away for a while, leaving the lady alone to deal with the situation. Having bowed respectfully to their mistress, the servants left, leaving her alone, so that she could enjoy the moment in quiet solitude. Herself stood in silence, not knowing whether to react or what to say in this situation, feeling somewhat confused and unsure. Turning and looking around, the lady decided that the moment had come to leave this place filled with a feeling of prolonged anticipation and boredom. Suddenly, the girl's attention was completely captured by the dagger elegantly placed in a transparent glass display case, where it sparkled and sparkled like a magical decoration, attracting the eye with its exquisite brilliance. Bending over the weapon, she began to carefully examine the ancient object, immersing herself in its ancient history and each carefully carved pattern, as if trying to unravel the secrets hidden in its elegant details. The Virgin did not even have time to realize how Tsar appeared behind her, as if from the shadow itself, as if he had appeared from the darkness quickly and invisibly, reminding of his presence. He grabbed her hand with such lightning speed that she barely had time to feel the touch of the dagger blade, which was already preparing for a swift strike. The Duke, although he asked for forgiveness, urgently asked that his companion not touch this object, avoiding her hands and keeping it intact. The aristocrat stated with a confident tone that everything in the house, without exception, belongs to the lady with the exception of this dagger, which made the lady embarrassedly apologize, realizing her mistake and awkwardness in this situation. The Duke reassured everyone, saying that everything was in order, and explained that the knife was cursed, which explained its special meaning and required careful handling. The shocked lady exclaimed in complete confusion as to why her husband had not taken care to hide this dagger if it was cursed and could pose a real threat to safety. Tsar added that this was intended as a safety net, and it was possible that the Duke wanted to use the dagger's curse against someone who might pose a threat. The man asked everyone to refrain from testing their luck and not to touch the dagger, explaining that even a light touch to the rack where it was located could cause considerable pain. Xenia realized that she didn't want anything bad to happen to her and decided to act carefully to avoid possible troubles. The man complimented the lady, noting that she looked stunning with an elegant and sophisticated look that was eye-catching and admirable. Xenia explained that all this beauty and sophistication became possible thanks to the efforts of the maids who came from the capital and carefully helped her in preparation. Ardiel was sincerely glad that the servants showed incredible kindness and attention to the new mistress, providing her with all the necessary care and support. The aristocrat suggested having a cup of tea after dinner to spend time together in a pleasant conversation and enjoy communication in a relaxed atmosphere. Sitting with a cup of tea on the sofa and enjoying the cozy atmosphere, Tesser decided before the wedding to ask the lady an important question that had been bothering him for a long time and required a sincere answer. The Duke knew that the wedding was supposed to be grand, with a magnificent celebration. But despite this, he wanted to shorten the ceremony, making it more modest and laconic. Xenia would ask that you be honest with her and tell the truth about what will happen in such a case to avoid misunderstandings and ensure transparency in all subsequent steps. Coldly, Tsar stated that he would get rid of anyone who would interfere with his plans in order to remove any obstacles and ensure the complete accomplishment of his goals. The lady immediately realized that he intended to send them to the next world, having conceived a villainous plan to get rid of their presence forever. Xenia did not mind the celebration, but would prefer that as few people as possible know about the wedding, trying to keep this special moment in a small circle of loved ones. She reminded her husband that the entire event was merely a means to ensure the lady's safety, emphasizing that the true goal was her protection and well-being. The guy decided to invite only those who really wanted to attend the ceremony in order to make it more personal and meaningful for those who sincerely shared their joy. After this, the Duke added that caution and vigilance should be exercised towards his younger sister, warning of possible treacherous intentions and hidden threats. This came as a real shock to the lady since she had never before seen the guy's sister, who was staying in the mansion, and was amazed that her presence could pose a danger. Tsar shared the news that his younger sister, after their wedding, will come to visit. This will be a wonderful opportunity for them to spend time together and enjoy communication. All this time, Xenia was convinced that her husband sent his family to the next world with his own hands, but it turned out that he had a living relative that no one knew about. The newlyweds decided to introduce the girl as the daughter of a baron of the northern border in order to avoid unnecessary questions and keep the true origins and circumstances of their family secret. When asked if there was anything else that the girl should have known, the aristocrat fell silent, awkwardly looked away, and seemed to feel discomfort, as if trying to hide something important. The girl immediately realized that she had touched on a forbidden topic when she saw how the aristocrat froze, awkwardly looked away, and clearly felt discomfort. Suddenly, Xenia turned pale when she heard the word lips. It caused such great excitement and fear in her that she could hardly hide her reaction. The Duke, blushing with embarrassment and unable to hide his excitement, said that they should have kissed at the wedding. The voice trembled, and the gaze avoided direct contact with others. The lady, realizing the cause of her embarrassment and realizing that her behavior was incorrect and inappropriate herself, became red like a ripe rose, illuminated by the soft evening light. Covering her mouth with her hand, she could hardly cope with the excitement and embarrassment, and barely restraining the trembling in her voice, asked the question of whether it was really absolutely necessary to perform this action. For a young girl, this moment will be the first kiss, which will fill her heart with trepidation and excitement, opening up a whole world of new emotions and impressions. It was also surprising and a little uncomfortable for the Duke to feel so shy about such a simple but meaningful kiss. To fill the silence and brighten up the awkwardness of the moment, Senya began pouring aromatic tea into cups carefully and carefully distributing it, trying to create an atmosphere of comfort and warmth. Tsar emptied the cup in one gulp quickly, drinking the drink as if trying to forget about the pause and regain the feeling of lightness and ease. The girl noticed that the interlocutor looked rather unwell. His tired appearance and gloomy expression clearly indicated that he was going through difficult times. Shyly, the Duke replied that despite his tired appearance, everything was in order, adding that it was already quite late, so it would be better for everyone to go to bed. Before the aristocrat left, the lady shyly talked about the possibility of a kiss, hoping for a closer and more tender farewell. The man promised to do everything in his power to win the heart of his future wife and make her absolutely happy, turning their life together into a fairy tale. When Tsar left, the girl could not help but laugh, as the girl was overwhelmed with a feeling of tenderness from the touching and funny situation that she had just witnessed. With only a week left until the wedding, the mansion was busy with intense preparations for the event, including decorating the halls, organizing all the details, and finishing touches to make the day unforgettable. The servant approaching his mistress with expressive respect politely announced that the long-awaited moment had come when they should leave the cozy mansion and hit the road. Accompanied by the mustard hues of the sunset, they headed to the tailor, who would make them an exquisite wedding dress. One of the maids, trying to cheer up the hostess with a warm smile and sincere optimism, assured her that Senya would be able to have a great rest and sleep well that night, despite all the worries and worries. Inside the room, there were already many ladies with fabrics and various tools in their hands intended for sewing, creating an atmosphere of business activity and readiness to work, all of them with an icy gaze and a caustic grin on their faces, mercilessly looked at the future duchess, as if assessing her as a useless object without hiding their contempt and disdain. The lady finally realized why the maids had dressed her up so carefully and carefully today. It was not just a whim, but part of a carefully thought-out plan. Smiling, the tailor introduced himself, saying his name as Lacarne from the Sparkling Water Sparrow Atelier, proudly displaying the skill and sophistication of his work. Examining the lady with carefully hidden curiosity, the tailor politely asked if she was the future wife of the Duke. The man's voice was full of refined respect, and the glance that slid over the outfit betrayed professional interest. The man complimenting the lady noticed that rumors from the north, full of intriguing details and exciting stories, had long ago reached the capital. The tailor, slightly surprised that the lady who came to the fitting was not wearing a corset, politely asked her to raise her hands in order to take measurements of her fragile waist with maximum accuracy. The assistants began to actively condemn and discuss the Duchess, exchanging opinions on the lady's behavior and appearance, not missing the opportunity to express their dissatisfaction and censure. With a smile on her face, Senya stated that she is quite satisfied with her body and does not see the need to change or fix anything. One of the seamstresses suggested slightly cinching the waist, noting that in her native capital, this style was very popular and was considered a fashion trend which could add elegance and sophistication to the girl's image. An irritated Senya demanded to know the name of the impudent maid who dared to interfere with personal preferences and speak out about someone else's appearance. However, the lady was not going to forgive such a daring act, and keeping a cold smile on her face, demanded that the servant immediately name the insolent maid. The frightened woman, with a trembling voice and lowering her eyes, admitted that her name was Sarah, trying to hide the fear and excitement that were clearly visible on her face. The Duchess aggressively thanked the lady for her advice, noting with obvious sarcasm that in the opinion of women, women are valued only for their narrow waists, as if this is the only thing that determines their dignity and importance. Now, Senya remembered the name Sarah, noting to herself that this maiden was honest and brave, because she was not afraid to express her personal opinion despite the possible consequences. The assistants from the atelier did not expect that the newly minted aristocrat would show such obvious resistance and dare to object, expressing her opinion against their proposals, which led them to bewilderment and cause awkwardness. Xenia did not listen to the apology, and maintaining a cold calm, demanded that her personal maid immediately remove the insolent servant from the room, leaving her without the opportunity to return. The lady absolutely did not want Sarah to touch her anymore, preferring to avoid any further contact with this woman. Lacarne realized that he had been mistaken in his assessment of the Duchess, and eager to correct his mistake, hastily intervened, declaring that he would replace the assistant with another more suitable servant. Xenia felt irritated, and not caring about the status or fame of those present ordered all employees of the studio to leave the premises immediately to avoid further discontent and conflict. With his hands folded in front of him, Lacarne hastened to reassure his lady, assuring her that they were among the most popular in the capital and highly regarded for their skills and professionalism. The aristocrat noted that if they left unnoticed and without unnecessary noise, she would remain silent and would not spoil their reputation, thereby giving them a chance to avoid further consequences. Tsar, having learned about what had happened from the maids, immediately arrived to his beloved, trying to find out the details of what happened and express his support. He came into the room to tell her that he had managed to get rid of the annoying impudence, although at that time the Duke should have been at his workplace performing his official duties. In a cold and indifferent tone, the man stated that he intended to take the lives of the tailors, who by their behavior or actions greatly angered him and crossed all boundaries of patience. Xenia expected such a reaction, but could not understand why immediately kill innocent people instead of finding a more rational solution to the problem. Pulling at the fabric of the Duke's clothing, the lady, with obvious calm and confident determination, asked to leave this matter to herself, assuring that she preferred to deal with the situation in her own way, not wanting the interference of outsiders. To find a new dress, Xenia decided to turn to her personal maids, who had old friends in fashion circles, and could help in finding the perfect outfit. Lacarne was outraged without hiding his displeasure, and expressed strong dissatisfaction with what was happening, believing that the situation was out of control and required immediate intervention. When the assistant informed him that the Duke no longer needed his services, the man was shocked and deeply indignant, not understanding why the efforts were unnecessary and withdrawn without prior notice. He was afraid of losing clients who paid generously for his services, and in an effort to understand the reasons for what was happening, he sent his assistant to find out the details and return information about what happened. Lacarne noticed orders being canceled one after another and realized he needed to investigate the reason for the changes to understand what led to such a drastic turn of events and how it might affect his business. A loud cry was heard, drawing attention to Mr. Waldrick. A handsome man with dark hair and blue earrings noticed the situation, stating that it looked like he wouldn't be properly compensated again today. Lacarne was shocked by the arrival of such a rich gentleman. His surprised look and indistinct mutterings betrayed the shock caused by the unexpected visit of such a noble and influential person. He ordered his men to take everything they could, leaving behind only emptiness and chaos, in order to make the most of the opportunity. Sitting down on a chair, the mysterious handsome man asked with interest what kind of lady could put the tailor in such a difficult position, causing him such anxiety and confusion. At this time, the maid admired her mistress, who cleverly punished the impudent man, and the studio employees, showing skill and determination in the current situation. At this time, the maid admired her mistress, who cleverly punished the impudent man, and the studio employees, showing skill and determination in the current situation. She felt uncomfortable because the dress was so expensive that its cost could easily buy an entire village, which added unnecessary tension to the sensations. In the mirror, Xenia noticed the reflection of her husband, who seemed to be present in the room, which made her heart beat faster with surprise and excitement. The Duke was amazed and discouraged by the splendor and sophistication of the bride's appearance, which, like a work of art, left him completely delighted and speechless. The man quickly and confidently walked towards her. The steps were fast and decisive, as if he were driven by indomitable internal energy and an insistent desire to reach the lady as soon as possible. Xenia thought that her husband seemed about to cry, and his eyes filled with tears, reflecting the deep emotions and feelings that he was trying to contain. Their hands joined in a tender gesture, as if an invisible thread connected their hearts, symbolizing the deep and genuine connection mutual understanding and support that they found in each other. Pressing the lady's hand to his lips, the aristocrat, with special respect and reverence, gave her a tender kiss that was full of sophistication and sincere feelings. All the servants awkwardly watched the gentleman, their gazes full of timidity and confusion, as if they had become unwitting witnesses to a touching and intimate moment. Ardiel admitted that Senia was beautiful as always. The charm and grace remained unchanged, as if time could not overshadow such impeccable beauty. However, today the girl was so gorgeous that it was impossible to take my eyes off her. Her presence was so bewitching and dazzling that everything around seemed to freeze in admiration. The servants, hearing such unexpected and unusual words from their master, for the first time covered their mouths in complete shock and surprise, realizing the unusualness of what was happening. Bowing politely, the seamstresses informed their guests with respect and a slight smile that the moment had come when they must set off on a long journey to continue their business. Having said goodbye to the ladies, the lady, in languid anticipation and with a slight feeling of excitement, remembered that tomorrow would come the long-awaited wedding day which she had so carefully prepared and dreamed about for so long. Returning to the groom, Senia curiously asked why he decided to visit her, and what thoughts prompted him to do this on such an important day for both of them. Tsar honestly admitted that his desire to see his beloved in a white dress was so strong that he could not miss the opportunity to visit his wife before an important event to enjoy this unforgettable moment. The Duke also wanted to ensure that all employees would show due respect and courtesy towards the Duchess, unlike previous employees. The lady was also interested in whether the aristocrat played any role in the fact that a certain atelier failed, and whether he was somehow connected with this event. However, Ardiel objected, insisting that his hands were not involved in this matter and that he had nothing to do with such a terrible event. The only thing that the wise man provided was a backup plan in case the bride could not stand up for herself and cope with possible difficulties. The Duke was the kind of person who did not forgive his offenders, and therefore strongly advised his beloved not to succumb to provocations and not to forgive those who hurt her. Calmly, the lady asked what would happen if he himself became the kind of person who could forgive and become a better person. Having straightened his companion's red hair, the aristocrat sadly said that there was no turning back and admitted that he himself was very bad and made mistakes that he could not correct. But Tsar could not shake off the deep feeling of longing for his beloved, who still occupied an important place in his heart and thoughts. Grabbing the man's hand, the girl stated that she was not glass and could not understand why, despite their agreement, the interlocutor treated her in this way. Tsar was surprised by the girl's words regarding their relationship and was puzzled by the fact that they did not coincide with how he himself perceived them. Tilting her head to the side, Senia, with a sincere expression on her face, offered friendship to the man, hoping that this would strengthen mutual understanding and begin a new page in their relationship. Noticing how her companion began to cry, the lady ordered him to compose himself and simply answer the questions demanding clarity and honesty from him in their conversation. The guy bowed his head blindly, following the words of his beloved, and despite his own feelings, obeyed her demands and instructions. Smiling, he admitted that he was not against her demands, since he incredibly liked Senia, and was ready to make any compromises and concessions for her sake, despite his own desires. As a sign of agreement and confirmation of their intention, they shook hands, which symbolized their willingness to cooperate and mutual respect. Smiling, the lady asked her friend to take care of her and provide everything necessary for their upcoming ceremony, showing attention to detail and care for the preparation of an important event. When the Duke, belatedly realizing that a kiss had taken place, shuddered in embarrassment, not knowing how to react to the unexpected and awkward circumstance, the wedding day arrived, and the estate was illuminated in the bright rays of the sun, creating an atmosphere of joy and celebration that enveloped everything around. Senia wore a white dress radiating innocence and grace, holding the hand of the groom, who, trying to calm his beloved gently and confidently, supported her during this important moment. The aristocrat, dressed in an elegant smart suit, hastened to admit that he himself was also feeling nervous and anxious, despite his confidence and calmness. Tsar was pleasantly surprised by the words of the bride, in which she assured him that she would do everything possible to avoid any mistakes, showing her determination and serious approach to the important event. The lady was incredibly beautiful in her luxurious veil and exquisite jewelry, elegantly styled in her red hair. These details emphasized sophisticated elegance and created a magical and unforgettable experience. The door opened, letting in a stream of bright light that illuminated everything around, filling the space with warmth and joyful shine. Together, the two lovers were an ideal couple, personifying harmony and mutual understanding, their joint presence, creating an atmosphere of true happiness and mutual support. They approached the table where the priest stood ready to perform the ceremony and unite their destinies in this solemn and significant moment. They approached the table where the priest stood ready to perform the ceremony and unite their destinies in this solemn and significant moment. Her large blue eyes were constantly shining, following her companion with an expression of deep love and admiration, reflecting all the feelings and emotions that she experienced at this special moment. Tsar tenderly gave his beloved a kiss that was full of warmth and passion, symbolizing the depth of his feelings and devotion. Closing their eyes from sweet pleasure, the couple plunged into a kiss, as if in a magical sea of emotions where everything around was filled with endless passion. Xenia blushed as the time of loneliness passed, and her face turned red, like the morning light filling her hearts with a new feeling of warmth and tenderness. The priest waited patiently until the right moment arrived when he could perform his sacred rites surrounded by silence and sacred expectation. Suddenly, the door swung open, breaking the silence, and a noisy stream of fresh air rushed into the room, which seemed to break the long silence. Whispers passed through the hall, and the aristocrats, absorbed in their attention, watched a girl with long black hair dressed in an exquisite blue dress that flowed around her like a wave of the night sea. Hastily not paying attention to curious glances, the little lady confidently walked towards the newlyweds. Every step was full of determination and desire, as if she carried an important message. This girl turned out to be Serendia, who resolutely and unswervingly opposed her older brother getting married, considering this decision to be extremely ill-conceived and incorrect. At that moment, Xenia remembered the existence of her husband's family, which suddenly reminded her of the ties and obligations that she had left behind. Serendia was remarkably similar to her brother when she desperately tried to break free from the hands of the servants, striving to gain freedom and regain control of her destiny. The girl screamed loudly that such a marriage should not even exist, expressing her indignation and dissatisfaction with this unfair and, in her opinion, unacceptable union. It was very strange that this little girl, being on the bride's side, shouted that her brother should not ruin the other girl's life, as if she herself was not involved in the situation. Tsar, feeling a chill pierce his every word, ordered the servants to immediately take his younger sister to safety. The priest, standing behind and slightly apologizing for his recent cough, sighed quietly to continue the ceremony, after a short pause disrupted by a sudden attack. The Duke, taking a deep breath and with visible concern in his voice, turned to his beloved, sincerely asking her forgiveness for ruining such an important and joyful wedding day with his rash actions and accident. The guy, realizing that such an incident could happen, decided to take action and therefore gave strict orders not to let the girl into the hall in order to avoid further complications and maintain order. After Xenia heard this compliment, her face turned red with embarrassment and joy, and her heart beat faster with unexpected admiration. Ardiel added that she should not worry about anything, since he will always be by her side, supporting and protecting her as a loyal and reliable ally in any situation. When the couple entered the hall, representatives of high society were already waiting for them, who were eagerly preparing to congratulate the newlyweds and share with them this solemn and important moment of joy and happiness. Unable to bear the tension, the lady went outside to relax a little. She was soon joined by her husband, who saw her worries and came to support her, offering reassurance and consolation. The lady did not know how to explain that it was not that the nobles frightened her, but that on the contrary, they were sincerely concerned about her well-being. After drinking a glass of drink, the girl admitted that she did not get drunk quickly. The Duke, to whom she turned, did not drink at all and maintained complete composure and calm. The lady's attention was suddenly attracted by a loud scream that sounded nearby and instantly made her alert, distracting her from her current thoughts and forcing her to look for the source of the noise. There, clutching the edge of the balcony and clinging desperately, hung the Duke's younger sister. The baby struggled to hold on in her arms, loudly, screaming in panic and desperately calling for help. The girl's voice echoed throughout the palace. The loving couple instantly became alert, realizing that Serendia was in serious danger. Their hearts sank with anxiety, and they realized that they must act immediately to save her and prevent a possible tragedy. Without thinking twice, as Senia continued to scream in horror, the Duke decisively stepped foot onto the balcony, ready to do whatever it took to save his little sister. He made a swift leap instantly, finding himself nearby on the edge of the balcony, ready at any second to pick up the lady and pull her out of danger. The man grabbed the baby by the dress with a strong hand, not allowing her to fall off, while she desperately ordered to let her go, not realizing the fragility of her position. Eventually, Serendia was saved. Breathing heavily and trembling from the horror she had experienced, the lady could not hold back the tears that slowly flowed down her cheeks, reflecting the depth of her fear and relief. Senya, immersed in her thoughts, sat silently and listened carefully to the conversations of her relatives. Their discussions filled with emotions and experiences. The girl believed that such a relationship between brother and sister was quite normal, believing that their interaction, despite all its peculiarities, was normal and natural for family ties. Serendia thought that it would have been better if that person had not invited her here at all, because everything would have turned out differently. The stern man ordered the girl to stop acting childish and pull herself together, showing seriousness and restraint that corresponded to the current situation. Senya thought about how much they were alike, because the baby, just like him, tried to hold back her tears, showing amazing courage and endurance in difficult moments. Deciding to intervene in a family dispute, the lady made herself known, interrupting the discussion and attracting the attention of everyone present with her determination and authority. With a smile, the lady asked if the Duke would catch her if she decided to jump. The woman's words were full of playful challenge, and her gaze was full of curiosity and confidence. These words immediately attracted the attention of the aristocrats, causing them to stop their conversations and focus on the lady whose playful provocation brought a note of intrigue and anticipation into the atmosphere. The lady, without hesitation, took off her elegant shoes and, feeling the light breeze, gracefully stepped onto the balcony to enjoy the evening air. Tsar politely but persistently asked the girl to stop and refrain from doing stupid things in order to prevent possible troubles and maintain calm. Senya firmly ordered her husband to catch her immediately, warning that if he did not do so, she risked falling and being seriously injured. The girl, having made a decisive leap, abruptly lifted one leg off the floor and, hanging in the air, found herself in a position that created a real risk of falling and injury. Tsar, gripped by panic and deep fear for the safety of his beloved, immediately rushed to her side to prevent a possible fall and protect her from the consequences. Senya felt her body rapidly soar into the air, losing contact with the ground and plunging into a feeling of weightlessness and uncertainty. The nobleman spread his arms to embrace and support his beloved, ready to fall into the safe and warm embrace of endless happiness. As a result, Ardiel gently caught the girl, who hugged him tightly, as if seeking comfort and peace in his arms, wrapping her arms around him as if hiding herself from the world. Serendia was fascinated by what was happening, and full of admiration watched the couple in love, as if spellbound by their sincere feelings and touching intimacy. The lady, gently and gracefully nestled in the man's arms, radiated happiness and satisfaction, her eyes sparkling and her smile bright and sincere. However, the Duke's face remained empty and concentrated. His gaze was unreadable, as if he was plunging into the depths of his own thoughts, not paying attention to the surrounding atmosphere of celebration and happiness. Senya couldn't believe her eyes when the guy interrupted her, assuring her that everything was fine, his calm and equanimity contradicting his own feelings and worries. Quietly, with sincere emotion, he asked his beloved not to repeat this again, adding that, if he had two hearts, they would not have withstood this load. The lady, as if not noticing his excitement, said with a smile that everything was fun. The woman's words sounded light and relaxed, as if she did not feel the depth of what was happening. Tears appeared in the Duke's eyes from difficult memories that touched his heart and soul with invisible shadows, causing deep inner pain, reflecting unspoken experiences and shadows of past losses. This action upset the lady who did not want her joy to be overshadowed by the suffering of others, and her face darkened slightly with excitement and anxiety. Carefully and tenderly, Ardiel, as if appreciating every moment of their time together, helped his beloved wife carefully put on elegant shoes to make the day a little brighter and more joyful. Serendia, watching her older brother with delight and genuine surprise, could not believe her eyes, not believing that he was capable of such incredible deeds and achievements. Remembering her husband's sister, Senia, greeted the girl with warmth and joy, sincerely happy to meet her, and feeling that this meeting would add special meaning to their relationship. The little girl looked at the woman in front of her with fear and anxiety. Big eyes expressed genuine excitement and confusion. From the outside, Serendia seemed like a strong and confident young lady with an impressive appearance and a commanding gaze. But up close, her pale, barely noticeable, trembling features and fragile, almost ethereal figure betrayed something completely different. There were red wounds on her tender hands, left after trying to resist the fall, which clearly indicated her struggle with pain and difficulties. Caringly taking the little girl's hand, the lady asked, with a warm and reassuring smile, if she had been hurt anywhere else, showing sincere and attentive concern for her well-being and making sure the girl was comfortable. However, the lady only received a sharp blow to her fingers from the frightened girl, who in a panic tried to protect herself from the unwanted touch. Serendia was stunned by her own actions, feeling deep surprise and confusion at having reacted so strongly to attention from another adult. Senia just smiled softly, realizing that it was a defensive reaction, similar to that of the girl's frightened brother, and tried not to pay much attention to it. Calmly, the lady explained to the little girl that if the wounds were not healed, they could leave scars, trying to convey this important warning with gentleness and patience. Quickly turning to her husband with a determined expression, Senia made it clear that she was ready to act and resolve the situation without delay, showing complete determination. She asked the Duke to immediately bring the medicine, confident that his help was necessary to provide first aid and prevent possible complications. The aristocrat was amazed and surprised to hear such words addressed to him, since this was an unexpected and unusual requirement, clearly beyond the scope of usual communication and behavior. The lady strictly stated that she addressed him specifically, emphasizing her exactingness and confidence in the need for his participation in solving the problem that had arisen. Tsar, without the slightest hesitation and with full readiness to carry out his task, went to collect medical supplies to provide the necessary help and care, showing true nobility and determination. Senia was very serious and determined, understanding the importance of her mission to help the girl and provide her with the necessary support at this difficult moment. Herself was horrified by what this witch had done to her older brother, realizing the full extent of the horror and fear she felt due to this sinister act. The lady sincerely apologized for grabbing the baby's hand so unexpectedly and abruptly realizing that her actions could have frightened the child and caused him significant discomfort, and promised to be more attentive in the future. Realizing that there were wounds on the small palms, the lady continued to question her owner if she was really against the marriage, showing patience and attention to detail. Virgo was sincerely interested in the reason why the girl was so strongly against marriage, and she sought to understand all the circumstances and motives behind this decision. Serendia explained that next to such a terrible person, Senia would not be able to be truly happy, and life would be full of suffering, unhappiness, and constant mental anguish, which she was not ready to endure. The most terrible thing was that the little girl herself was burned and was deceived by her older brother, who treated her cruelly, leaving deep emotional traumas. Beauty realized that the girl had her own good reasons for hating her. Relative, realizing that her hostility was caused by deep and painful circumstances. Thus the sister had no choice but to burst into the hall and express her displeasure, desperately demonstrating her indignation and protest against what was happening. Senia was once again convinced of the striking similarities between sister and brother, noting how their character traits and behavior patterns surprisingly resonated and complemented each other, creating a sense of unity and mutual understanding. The girl thought about how much had changed since she was a child, and how various events and experiences since then had a significant impact on life and perception of the world. Therefore, the mother lovingly and carefully hugging her little girl, hugged her close, wrapping her in warmth and love in order to comfort her, make her fragile soul calmer, and give her a feeling of complete security. Unable to withstand the excitement and tension, Serendia burst into tears, while the lady, absorbed in caring for the well-being of others, continued to share her warmth and attention. The little girl, trembling with fear and uncertainty, hid behind the hand of her new friend, seeking shelter from the stern and intent gaze of her older brother, who seemed ready to be angry with her. Remembering the banquet meeting, Xenia asked her visiting husband questions about the event and the guests, trying to find out what happened and how it went. In a cold and distant tone, the Duke reported that the apparent behavior had caused the lady considerable displeasure, leaving her completely bewildered and upset. While the servants were diligently collecting plates after the banquet, Xenia pretended that she did not understand what exactly the Duke was talking about, trying to avoid discussing the unpleasant topic. The man himself realized that it was because of him that this conflict began, and he understood that now he had to independently find a solution and correct the situation. As a result, he firmly stated that today, Serendia would stay with them so as not to create additional problems, and tomorrow the little lady would return home. The lady could not understand how she could remain calm and not worry about her husband's only relative, who was so important and close to her despite all the circumstances. Suddenly, the voice of the little girl was heard, who, despite all the attempts of those around her to calm her down and persuade her to leave this place stubbornly and with determination, refused to leave, demonstrating her perseverance and independence. Serendia firmly stated that she would stay at home with her brother, despite all the arguments and requests of others, expressing her determination and desire to be close to her loved one. Xenia fully supported the girl in this dispute, adding that she had always dreamed of a younger sister, and therefore happily approved of her desire to stay at home with the Duke. Unable to continue the argument with his beloved aristocrat, Ardiel gave in and agreed to give her the right to decide when to leave and when to stay at home, realizing that his wife's opinion is very important to him. Tsar then realized that something was wrong when his attention was caught by angry and wary glances directed in his direction, leaving him feeling anxious and bewildered. With sternness and steadfastness, Xenia stated that Serendia has every right to stay in her home for as long as she sees fit, emphasizing that no one has the right to challenge this decision or violate her personal preferences. The little girl looked in surprise at her brother, who admitted his mistake and agreed that he was wrong, clearly amazed by his unexpected decision. The lady was glad that she was able to establish contact and establish friendly relations with her husband's relative, feeling deep satisfaction from this new and valuable acquaintance. An incredibly pleasant and friendly atmosphere was established between the girls, which made their communication especially warm and cozy, filling every moment of interaction with a feeling of mutual understanding and harmony. The Duke had no choice but to accept the choice of his beloved, realizing that her opinion and decision were more important to him than all other considerations and expectations. Xenia, flying in the air, shouted loudly for everyone around to be on guard and prepare for possible danger. The voice sounded demanding and insistent, forcing everyone to pay attention to the warning. Tsar then raised his head, his gaze becoming focused and wary as he began to realize what was happening around him, and that the situation could become more serious than expected. As a result, the girl fell right on top of the man, and this unexpected collision made him cry out in pain, clutch his head, and feel severe discomfort while he tried to understand what had happened and understand how it happened. The aristocrat could not take his eyes off the beauty who fell in front of him, amazed by the unexpected and spectacular appearance, which attracted all the attention and made the guy forget about current worries and problems. Smiling brightly, Xenia asked the man for forgiveness, explaining that she did not mean to use him as a pillow, and that her fall was an accident, expressing sincere regret and striving to make amends. This wonderful and majestic maiden, possessing not only rare grace, but also true dignity, was not just a famous person, but also an empress. The people around screamed in panic that the empress had disappeared, her disappearance causing confusion and fear among all who knew and revered her as a symbol of hope and power. The girl expressed her gratitude to the master, for the help provided, after which she hastened to hide from her own servants, fearing their displeasure and disappointment. At this moment, Tsar prayed that his beloved would move so far away that no one could find her, trying to ensure her safety and hide her from all possible threats. The next time the Duke, full of determination and respect, visited the mysterious lady in a magnificent palace, the guy sought to offer his devoted service and become a loyal ally. The Empress, sitting on the throne, looked like a doll devoid of emotions. Her impassive expression and motionless posture gave her appearance a strange and cold charm. Xenia, once a commoner, managed to rise to the status of the mistress of the country, and such an incredible path and achievements amazed the Duke, earning him deep admiration and respect. Xenia, previously considered the weak link of the imperial family, greeted her acquaintance with respect, showing friendliness and warmth despite her past reputation. Ardiel escaped from the pursuit of the nightmare, which relentlessly followed him, overcoming all the obstacles and dangers along the way. Grabbing his head, feeling the pain tearing his consciousness apart, he struggled out of bed. Overcoming feelings of fatigue and anxiety, Tsar tried to collect his thoughts and return to reality after a night full of painful dreams. An old blurry image of a lovely maiden in an exquisite cloak surfaced in his memory, as if the image was shrouded in the fog of time and slipped away from under his consciousness, leaving only a vague but deep impression. The man realized that this was only the beginning of a long and difficult journey that lay ahead of him. The aristocrat faces many trials and difficulties ahead, requiring courage and determination. The gentleman's friend, noticing his tired appearance, asked worriedly what could have caused such an exhausted state, hoping for an honest and frank answer. The Duke brushed off the concern, not wanting to delve into his personal feelings, and with a decisive tone, asked if his subordinate had carried out the order that was given to him. The man threw a precious ring with a stone on the table, not hiding his irritation. A bright decoration with a cut stone reflected the light, attracting the attention of those present. The guy said that he made this ring from the heart of a dragon, and curiously asked why the master needed such a powerful weapon. Tsar explained that the ring was a necessary measure to avoid an unfortunate end in case of a worst-case scenario. He emphasized that the use of such an artifact was intended to prevent tragic consequences. Hiding the ring in his robes, the nobleman did not continue the discussion, and after pausing, ordered his subordinate to develop a new weapon against evil forces in order to prepare for a possible threat. Tsar understood that despite the fact that he would try to share all the smallest details with his friend, he would probably still not believe the true essence of what was happening. The servant's green eyes widened in surprise when he heard the words that this world would soon plunge into the abyss of destruction and disappear. The Duke stood up from his seat, and a sudden silence filled the office, like an invisible curtain interrupting any sound, and leaving everyone present to wait for the next step. The man was aware that disasters happen every 200 years, but the nobleman had something completely different in mind, more mysterious and potentially dangerous. Coldly and dispassionately, the man ordered his subordinate not to disclose his guesses to anyone, emphasizing the importance and secrecy of information that he might accidentally reveal. Suddenly, the Duke's attention was attracted by loud, angry shouts coming from the corridor, in which indignant voices expressed their categorical displeasure and refusal to eat, sounding like a rebellious protest against the proposed dish. Xenia was deeply outraged to discover that the 13-year-old girl was so thin that her emaciated appearance caused a feeling of deep anxiety and indignation. Serendia was loudly indignant that the Duke's wife was distinguished by her strength, which was extremely unacceptable and surprising for her, causing a storm of emotions and indignation. The girl tried to convince the little girl that she should learn to stand up for herself and not let anyone suppress her, emphasizing the importance of inner strength and confidence. The little girl's eyes seemed to open, and she suddenly realized that the girl was right. Doubts disappeared, giving way to an awareness of the importance of being able to stand up for yourself. Therefore, Xenia tried to negotiate with the baby so that she would start eating, realizing that only through adjusting her nutrition could her condition be improved and her health strengthened. The girl agreed, and everyone's attention returned to the Duke, who decided to continue the conversation with the company, planning to discuss important issues and make decisions regarding further actions. The lady was extremely embarrassed by such attention to her modest person. Her face turned red with embarrassment, and she felt uncomfortable under the gaze of others. Suddenly, Serendia stood up from the table and loudly announced that she had finished eating, attracting the attention of everyone present and interrupting the general atmosphere. The baby quickly left the place, leaving the loving couple alone and giving them the opportunity to enjoy a private moment, solitude, and closeness to each other. Xenia told the Duke that there was nothing surprising in what was happening because the girl in question was his younger sister, and this explained many things. The lady asked her husband to be nicer and more attentive to his relative in order to create a more comfortable atmosphere for her. In the darkness of the night, the Duke sobbed sincerely, apologizing to his beloved for all his mistakes and misdeeds. He sought to atone for his sins and return love, hoping that his tears and repentance would help restore what was lost. After reflecting on his actions, the husband presented the lady with a ring, hoping that this sign of sincerity and love would help express his deepest feelings and correct the mistakes of the past. Tsar explained that this exquisite piece of jewelry was intended to be a wedding gift, symbolizing an important and special moment in life. This ring was made specifically for a noblewoman, taking into account her status and refined taste, in order to become not just a decoration, but a significant symbol of social status and protection. Male hands helped the lady, helping her carefully put the jewel on her finger, adding even more grace and solemnity to the moment. Xenia felt the ring gradually shrink in size, precisely adjusting to the size of her finger to fit perfectly and highlight the grace of her hand. Raising her head up, the girl saw how the world around her froze in complete silence, as if all the surrounding sounds and movement suddenly stopped, leaving her in the only continuous peace. The aristocrat urgently asked that the ring not be removed under any circumstances, since it had a special meaning and was extremely important to him. Xenia nodded understandingly, respectfully, agreeing with the established conditions and accepting them without the slightest hesitation, realizing the importance and significance of this decision. In the memories, the guy asked for forgiveness from a woman in armor, whose long hair was braided into a neat braid from which special grace and strength emanated. It was extremely important for him that his beloved remained alive, because her life was of the highest value and invaluable significance in any circumstances. The Duke could no longer endure the ordeal of sitting next to the lifeless body of his beloved. Her heart could not stand the pain of realizing the loss, and every moment next to her only aggravated the suffering. A new day had arrived, and the greenery around filled the air with freshness, as if nature itself had come to life to greet it with renewed energy and vitality. A gold ring shimmered on the hands of the noble lady, sparkling in the rays of light, and giving the image even more elegance and sophistication. Sitting with her husband's younger sister, Xenia, reflected that perhaps her oath to keep the jewelry had much more meaning than just the Duke's promise. Noticing that Serendia was playing with her food, the girl firmly took the food away from her and sternly yelled at her for her unacceptable behavior, emphasizing the importance of respecting food and manners. When the baby made herself comfortable, taking a cup of aromatic tea, the beautiful lady asked what exactly she would like to do at this time. The lady proposed a cunning plan to her interlocutor, to anger her brother in order to make him emotional and see how he, having overcome his restraint, began to show his true feelings. However, the sister replied that she was not at all interested in wasting time on such a bad person as the Duke, and that his affairs did not deserve attention. Xenia noticed that the girl's mood improved significantly when the little girl saw the aristocrat, and sparks of admiration and joy lit up in her big eyes. Silence hung between them like an invisible wall separating them at this moment, and they both felt the silence slowly fill the space, creating tension and uncertainty. Holding a cup of hot tea in her hands, Serendia, with deep regret and worry in her voice, asked why her brother killed everyone who was near her, leaving not a single living creature. The girl knew that Tsar had a bad relationship with his other brothers, and often clashed with them, but was shocked, and in complete shock, when she learned that he also decided to get rid of his parents. Crying, the little girl dreamed of leaving this world on the day of her parents' death, unable to cope with the grief and loss that left her alone in this terrible and helpless state. Tsar was an infamous dragon knight who killed his entire family in order to gain a high position in the palace, seeking power and influence despite the price he had to pay for his ambitions. It seemed to the girl that the guy did this not only for the sake of the position. It seemed to her that behind his action, there was hidden something more darker and deeper than a simple desire for power. While walking with the Duke's sister, the thought occurred to the lady that the man could have committed such terrible acts because of his bride, perhaps because of some deceitful passion or dark intrigues associated with her. The servant who knew about all the happenings was a lady with dark hair appointed to watch over the new mistress and provide for her needs with attention and care. After this, Senya decided to ask Solette about the cause of death of the Duke's relatives, hoping to find out the truth about what really happened and what circumstances could lead to such tragic events. Silence hung between the ladies, like an invisible barrier, forcing them both to freeze in anticipation and immerse themselves in their thoughts, giving the moment a special tension. The aristocrat's sister found out that Solette knew the secrets of the Duke's family, to which the servant just silently lowered his eyes, not wanting to reveal more information and keeping his own secrets. Senya said it was unlikely that a butler would work for someone he didn't like, stressing that loyalty and respect play an important role in such work relationships. The lady explained that she owed her life to the master, and her duty was to protect the young wife from worries about female competition, providing her with peace and stability in such delicate matters. When it turned out that the lady had not asked whether Solette loved the Duke, the servant apologized to the mistress, realizing that the previous silence and misunderstanding may have caused unnecessary worries and misunderstandings. Senya couldn't help but notice how the servants treated her with suspicion, showing caution in every move and word, which only increased the feeling of wariness and anxiety. Deva added that Solette did not specifically state that touching the dagger which was behind glass in the office was strictly prohibited, which could have been an important element of security or a symbol of prohibition. The servant eventually admitted that she did not consider the maiden suitable for the role of duchess, considering her unsuitable due to her lack of experience, sophistication, or other qualities required for such an important position. She also admitted that at first she experienced doubts and mistrust, but later realizing her mistakes, she realized that the mistress having complete power could easily punish her. Senya never even thought about hurting another person over such an insignificant and completely unworthy little thing. Ultimately, the lady was able to find a common language with Soleil, and their difficult conversation ended with a bright, friendly smile that lit up their faces and gave rise to a new, warm relationship. The butler also carefully conveyed the news, which greatly shocked and surprised the lady, revealing the secret that the Duke's mother, whom everyone had thought of as deceased for many years, was in fact alive. Night fell, and Senya, tired after a long and stressful day, finally went to rest in her cozy bed, eager to fall into a restful sleep and regain her strength. Someone else's hand unexpectedly and carefully removed a silky strand of hair from the face of the sleeping lady, giving this moment a special intimacy. It turned out to be the Duke, who, noticing something strange and unusual in this gesture, instantly removed his hand, thereby breaking the moment of silence and leaving the lady with a feeling of vague and anxious excitement. The fact was that Senya was not sleeping. Her eyes were wide open, and she was watching the Duke, who, noticing the awakening, hastily removed his hand, not knowing how to react to the unexpected revelation of the secret. Rubbing her eyes with her hand, the girl replied that everything was fine, and added with slight irony, shouldn't the aristocrat have to work until the morning, as he himself said? It turned out that the guy really missed his beloved, and due to the painful bad sleep that disturbed him all night, he could not sit still and snuck into her room to check if everything was okay. Seeing deep fatigue and traces of anxiety on the Duke's face, the maiden, with compassion and warmth, suggested spending some time together to take a little break from worries and restore strength. After this, Senya hastened to clarify that they would just sit next to each other for a few minutes, and there would be no further warning in order to avoid misunderstandings, and so that the man would not make incorrect assumptions about her intentions. Tsar remained sitting on the floor, admitting with surprise and embarrassment that he could not even think about sitting next to his beloved. This seemed to him impermissible and unacceptable in their current situation. Resolutely, the lady grabbed her husband's hand, showing her determination and unwillingness to postpone the moment of intimacy and understanding between them. Confused but persistent, the girl insisted that the guy sit next to her, otherwise she threatened to drive him away, not allowing him to lose the opportunity to be there at this important moment. Tsar apologized for causing unnecessary trouble, sincerely regretting that he could have disturbed her peace and created unnecessary problems. Secretly, the Duke sat down on the very edge of the bed, trying to place himself as far as possible from his wife, so as not to violate personal space and not cause unnecessary worries. Along with the aristocrat's face, his ears also turned red, betraying his embarrassment and inner excitement, despite his attempts to maintain calm and restraint. Unexpectedly, gently, and with care, Xenia pulled the guy along with her and gently laid him on the pillow, trying to make sure that he could lie down comfortably and relax. The girl also inquired with deep interest whether her husband always slept so poorly that he woke up after nightmares and tears. She sincerely wanted to understand what could be causing his nightly suffering and how she could help him cope with it. The Duke, suffering from terrible and painful dreams, only remained silent, unable to find words to express his deepest experiences and inner torment that tormented him every night. After this, the man finally realized that even on the day he arrived to pick up his bride, he was tormented by nightmares that seemed incredibly real and left a deep mark on his mind. Feeling deep compassion and inner warmth, the lady extended her hand to her husband, trying to reassure and give comfort in this difficult moment. The lady carefully asked if she had ever been a participant in these dreams, wanting to understand how she was connected with the events taking place. Pressing his face to the lady and gently touching the woman's palm, Tsar quietly said that he dreamed of his beloved in every dream, filling every moment of her absence with a feeling of deep melancholy and affection. These touching words made the aristocrat flush and her face turn a deep red. The girl was overcome by a feeling of awkwardness and embarrassment from such a sincere confession and deep declaration of love. When Xenia promised not to appear in her dreams again, the Duke laughed, believing that the words were a playful and innocent playful statement in which he could not help but find a special charms. A proposal was made between them that if the wife slept next to her husband, he would feel much calmer and more confident, knowing that her presence would give him a feeling of comfort and security. Xenia noticed how tired the Duke was. His shoulders were slumped and traces of exhaustion were visible on his face, which aroused in her a deep feeling of sympathy and a desire to make his work easier. The man jumped up from his seat, unable to cope with the deepest shame that hit him like an uncontrollable wave, overwhelming his feelings and swallowing up all his confidence. The guy's gaze became cloudy, and the temperature of the male body began to rise rapidly, like a flame engulfing all internal sensations. In his defense, Tsar said that this was the first time his wife had spoken about such a thing, which makes her words especially unexpected and unusual for him. It would be much more strange and surprising for a lady if she happened to encounter such an unusual phenomenon in her life. The aristocrat quickly and deftly grabbed the fabric of the sheet with her thin, graceful hand, as if her future fate depended on it, carefully avoiding any unnecessary movement. The virgin did not intend to persuade her husband for a long time, and preferred to let him make his own decision, giving him complete freedom of choice without imposing his opinion. As a result, Tsar lay down next to her, trying to be as delicate and supportive as possible, so as not to disturb the atmosphere of peace and trust, listening with gentle attention to every rustle and movement. After some time, he carefully turned around and lay down on his side to see his beloved in a relaxed and calm state, as if trying to enjoy every moment of their intimacy. She then decided that this was the perfect time to start a conversation with the Duke, choosing the moment when their conversation could be most productive and meaningful. The man suggested that she could simply write him a letter if she was having difficulty expressing her thoughts and feelings in conversation, which would allow her to carefully think about every word and convey everything she wanted to say. The lady was deeply interested in the reason for her younger sister's deception, as well as why the man kept silent about the fact that their mother was actually alive, hiding this important truth. Ardiel explained that this decision was the desire of the mother herself, who chose to live as a person who had left this world preferring peace and solitude instead of returning to her previous life. From the sudden shock, the girl's mouth involuntarily opened, and she froze in place, trying to comprehend what she had heard. The eyes opened wide in amazement, and the heart beat faster, as if trying to find a way out of the whirlwind of overwhelming emotions. Xenia could not believe the incredible truth, which seemed completely impossible to her, and did not fit into her mind despite desperate attempts to find rational explanations. Moreover, the lady could not understand why the Duke needed to deliberately force his sister to hate him, and what could prompt such a painful and at first glance completely senseless act that destroyed their relationship. But then Xenia froze, unable to utter a word, when she learned the bitter truth that their mother, against all odds, was responsible for the death of their father, which plunged them into a state of complete shock and deep sorrow. Tsar gently touched his beloved's hair, and with a deep sigh admitted that he had no real choice, since he was already involved in fratricidal actions, and this reality changed his life forever. The lady lying next to her quietly said that she did not care no matter how the circumstances turned out, and she did not consider her husband a bad person despite the difficult actions and difficulties that he faced. The aristocrat woke up as the sun was just beginning to rise, filling the room with soft light and giving the beginning of a new day full of hope and opportunity. Next to her was Tsar, who gently asked if his darling slept well, showing care and affection as the morning light illuminated their private space. All disheveled Xenia, with difficulty opening her eyes, replied that she had slept well, although looking at the impeccable appearance of the aristocrat, it was impossible to say that he too had spent the night in a sleepy state. With a smile, the nobleman said that he had not lain in bed for so long in a long time, enjoying the unusual comfort and tranquility that this moment gave him. Smiling awkwardly, the lady realized that her handsome husband had probably spent the entire night watching her, and her embarrassment only increased with the realization of this. The baby covered her face with her hands, lost in thoughts of how terrible and unkempt she probably looked after sleeping for so long, not being able to look at herself in the mirror. The husband ordered his wife to prepare for tomorrow's breakfast, while he himself should have attended to urgent matters that required his attention and urgent decision. However, before leaving, the aristocrat asked to touch his interlocutor's forehead with his lips to express his sincere gratitude and respect. Confused and trembling with excitement, the lady, with a slight blush on her cheeks, modestly and reservedly, gave her consent, feeling how this unusual gesture awakened subtle emotions in her. With a deep feeling of love and reverent tenderness, the man gave her a kiss full of sincere emotions and deep respect, which became a symbol of sincere affection and heartfelt devotion. Before leaving, he also wished her a good day, sincerely hoping that every moment would be filled with joy and happiness, which added another note of warmth to their farewell gesture. The merciless sun beat down mercilessly on the building, turning it into a hot monolith that seemed even more menacing under the bright rays. The man held coins and flowers in his hands, creating a contrast between the cold shine of the metal and the soft delicacy of the petals, which gave the scene a special symbolic meaning. The Duke's younger sister bought the hairpin and proudly showed it off to her high-born sister, the Duchess, demonstrating how this exquisite accessory emphasized her sophistication and taste. The two of them went out into the city, eager to enjoy all the delights of fun and picturesque atmosphere that the evening had to offer. The girls immersed themselves in joyful events and entertainment, absorbing vivid impressions. Serendia admitted that she used to often visit the beauty salon with her mother, but now she is convinced that Xenia is not inferior in terms of service and skill, and sometimes even exceeds her expectations. The workers were outraged that they were trying to be kicked out of their place of work after 10 years of faithful service, considering such a decision to be unfair and betrayal of their many years of work and dedication. Another man commented that it was not surprising that such a development had occurred, because if the villager could not pay the required amount, then it was clear that his situation would not be easy and would likely lead to similar consequences. Xenia watched from the sidelines, paying attention to successful traders who were buying up buildings and buying new premises for themselves. The girl asked those around her how often such situations occur, showing interest in the frequency and causes of such events in order to better understand their nature and consequences. Local residents explained that recently, famous merchants began to actively buy land and buildings with favorable locations, and then gradually raised the rent, which significantly changed the conditions for the remaining tenants. The lady learned that this union was called Melibea, and its leader was called Walderic. Information about the organization and the leader opened up new horizons for her and helped her better understand what was happening. The men did not stop arguing, continuing to exchange accusations and argue despite all the efforts of those around them to resolve the conflict and return the situation to a calm course. However, they were soon stopped by a cold voice which interrupted their quarrel and restored order, introducing an element of authority and decisiveness into the conflict. They were stopped by Xenia, but no one recognized her as a famous aristocrat, since her appearance and manners were so changed that she remained inconspicuous to others. In front of everyone, the lady declared that she was a girl from the Duke's house, openly demonstrating her true origin and emphasizing her importance in this context. This statement shocked the crowd, leaving everyone completely delighted and bewildered, since no one expected such an intelligent person to appear in front of them. The woman at the Duchess's feet asked to be heard. The voice was full of hope and urgency as she sought to convey her request to the beautiful listener. Coldly and with a hint of contempt, the aristocrat stated that it was unlikely that the organization had the right to take away property from others, emphasizing her dissatisfaction and doubt about the legality of such actions. The guy stated that he solved all problems in this way in order to avoid the need to include documents demonstrating his desire for a quick and informal approach. The villager screamed that the amount of money was exorbitant, expressing her indignation and bewilderment at the unbearable burden that was placed on her. The man objected, arguing that everything could be paid if all the conditions were met and the necessary steps were taken to resolve the problem. Xenia added that it should also be examined whether such a sharp increase in rent was legal, raising questions about the legality and fairness of this action. The cunning scoundrel looked away and said that for such an increase in rent, only the desire of the owner of the building was enough. He added that they had many willing to pay even such amounts, which confirmed their high interest. Xenia understood this approach, but she considered it unfair to ordinary people who suffered from such decisions and could not afford such high rents. The lady had not yet studied the laws in such detail, so she did not know how to correct the situation. Her lack of knowledge left her in the dark about possible solutions to the problem and how to deal with injustice. The man suggested that the lady not interfere in such a matter and concentrate on other activities, believing that participation could only complicate the situation and distract from more productive activities. The Duchess felt uncomfortable with being ignored, as her actions and words were clearly not taken seriously, which made her feel awkward and dissatisfied. This was the last straw for her, and the lady was determined to figure everything out to the end, showing firmness and determination in her desire to correct the situation and restore justice. Tsar has learned of the disturbing events that have occurred in the city with his wife, and is deeply concerned about the circumstances that have so deeply affected those near and dear to him. The lady was amazed at the incredible speed with which the news spread around, like an instant whirlwind that covered every corner, and made one wonder at the scale of this rapid and widespread publicity. The guy himself heard from the smart Celeste. She told everything to the master, and this information obviously reached him and caused some consequences. With a smile on his face, the aristocrat stated with confident calm that he had absolutely no intention of interfering in what was happening or going against the will of his wife, emphasizing his respect for the decisions. The concerned lady admitted that everything that happened was the result of her anger, which undeservedly led to such unforeseen and unpleasant consequences. Xenia explained that it learned that rent increases were not properly regulated or normalized, which was causing the problems. The man listened carefully as the maiden considered whether to side with the villagers or support the alliance, considering which decision would be the most fair and expedient. Tsar agreed that achieving her goal was not easy, but sincerely believed that the lady would succeed, as he was confident in her outstanding abilities, determination, and ability to cope with any difficulties. Recently, Xenia could not calmly look at her husband's smiles without experiencing the embarrassment and internal discomfort that they caused. The lady understood that she had already used her husband's name too much in her affairs, but still wanted to ask him for help again, hoping for his understanding and support. The Duke did not hesitate for long, quickly agreeing, and was glad that Xenia was nearby, since her presence gave him confident support and a sense of calm in a difficult situation. The girl said that this was the first time this had happened to her, unless they spent this time sleeping in such a way that she might not have noticed what was happening. Turning away, the lady said goodbye to her husband, and with a slight sigh, said that they would discuss everything later when they had the opportunity to talk calmly, leaving space for further communication and clarification. Tesser was left alone, sitting in the living room, immersed in his thoughts and reflections, when everyone else had already left the room. While studying, the Duchess was looking for information about the secret alliance of traitors that she had recently encountered, hoping to understand the essence and possible consequences. She soon remembered the head of such an organization, whose name was Walderic, and realized that this was a key figure that she needed to study. The aristocrat suggested to his wife that the ships of this alliance were known for their exceptional reliability and did not sink due to the high quality of construction and advanced technology, which could be an important factor in their discussion. A conversation ensued between the spouses about transportation associated with the goddess. They discussed how such things exactly have an impact and how they could become even more powerful in the future, which could have significant consequences. Thoughtfully, Xenia wondered why the secret alliance was using money as a tool of influence, taking away trade metas on this particular land, and what hidden goals might lie behind these actions. After this, the man said that one should not approach the Union, which greatly surprised the interlocutor, making her think about the hidden reasons for his urgent warning and what could be hidden behind such words. The Duke sought to fulfill all the wishes of his beloved, but did not realize that getting involved with merchants might not be the wisest decision, especially considering the possible consequences. Naturally, Tsar will certainly provide the necessary assistance if required, and will try not to create any obstacles so that everything goes smoothly. This statement extremely outraged the girl, since her husband had previously promised not to interfere in personal affairs and to respect independence, which made such intervention especially painful and unexpected. Xenia reassured her husband, asking him not to worry, and assured him that regardless of the difficulties and circumstances, victory would definitely remain hers, and all problems would be resolved in the most favorable way. Poking her finger into the book, the lady explained that she had found something that she could use for her benefit, and pleasure, emphasizing that this discovery would bring her significant benefits. The lady agreed to accept help in finding information that would help her challenge the current situation and achieve justice, emphasizing that the correct use of data can significantly change the outcome of the case. In the city, things went on as usual, and life continued to flow in its usual rhythm, despite the events and changes that were taking place, which allowed residents to remain calm and confident in the future. An impressive crowd of spectators gathered on the streets of the city who watched what was happening with great curiosity and anticipation, anticipating what events would unfold before them. Having sat down at the table for discussion, the lady stated that she had carefully read the agreement and the materials explaining the reasons for the rent increase, and was now ready to listen to proposals and discuss possible solutions. She clarified whether she correctly understood that the reasons for the increase in rent were the cost of internal and external renovation of the building, as well as the change in the original value of the location of the shops. When the man finally agreed, giving in under pressure, other peasants immediately began accusing him of theft, bringing forward all sorts of suspicions and accusations. Xenia recalled that the contracts did not include a clause on charging for repairs, emphasizing that this circumstance should be taken into account in further discussions. The guy, as if nothing had happened, said that this was a matter of course, and if someone did not agree with the new conditions, then he should have made room, thereby emphasizing his determination in the correctness of his actions. The Duchess felt anger when she was not taken seriously, mistaking her courage and desire for justice for simple good intentions, which deeply disappointed her. The man laughed, realizing that although the Duchess did understand the laws, she had not taken into account the monetary deductions that would be required to pay large taxes. Trying to keep a cold smile on her face, Xenia did her best to restrain the storm of rage that raged inside her, and only barely hid her true irritation behind external calm. As a result, the Duchess came to the conclusion that the Union's account books should be carefully examined to identify possible errors or inconsistencies that could explain the current situation. This caused confusion and fear in the man, since the threat of checking the account books could reveal hidden problems and call into question his actions. The aristocrat decided that she needed to immediately calculate how much more taxes they would pay, and so insisted on seeing the account books right away. For the guy, this was like a blow to the head with a stone, since he did not want to pay more taxes and had previously evaded paying them altogether, which made the situation even more alarming and potentially dangerous for him. As the Duchess continued to speak, the merchant attempted to bribe her by offering a bribe in hopes of softening her demands and changing the course of the discussion in his favor. However, the lady was adamant, saying that in these lands there is also a restriction on the ownership of land and buildings for speculative purposes, and she will not accept any bribes. Xenia accepted the apology and demanded to see documents in order to identify the scoundrel and bring him to light, exposing all attempts at manipulation. As a result, the man was obliged to provide documents and evidence the next day in order to avoid further consequences and prove his honesty to the Duchess. With a smile, the lady finished her speech, adding that no one would even think of trying to deceive her, emphasizing her determination and vigilance in this matter. Taking the book with her, she went away, ordering others to continue working in their previous places, and received gratitude for her noble decision, which helped restore order and justice. The handsome man, struck by the unexpected turn of events, was the leader of the Malibia Merchants' Union, and his name was Walderic. He was surprised at how quickly and decisively the Duchess acted, showing her irresistible strength. The merchant addressed the Duchess with reverence, apologizing for the awkwardness of the reason for their meeting, and introduced himself by his full name, trying to soften the situation and demonstrate his respect. Xenia was deeply shaken and immersed in dark thoughts after the visit of the head of the merchants, whose presence left an indelible impression on her, like the shadow of an approaching storm. Walderic laughed, assuring that even if you conduct business with the utmost honesty and transparency, you can always find shortcomings if you want. In his opinion, these shortcomings might seem small, but if someone decides to look for them, their number will grow. The handsome man unobtrusively reminded the Duchess of the account books that she had previously requested, delicately emphasizing their importance and necessity for further consideration. Xenia coldly and distantly asked if the man had any other matters that he would like to discuss with her, as if wanting to quickly end this conversation and go into his own thoughts. The girl was suddenly surprised by the question of what was most important in such an aspect, not expecting that this particular point would be the focus of the conversation. Leaning over and placing his hand on his chest, the merchant waited for an answer, demonstrating respect and patience. The gesture was full of expectation, as if the guy was asking not just an answer, but confirmation of his respect. Not expecting such a question, the lady replied that although times and circumstances may change, some things remain unchanged, retaining their essence and meaning. The man immediately understood that the lady was talking about justice, sensing that her words touched on a deeply rooted concept that remained unchanged despite the changes around him. Xenia reasoned that lands were managed not only for reasons of income, but also for deeper reasons related to heritage, tradition, and internal principles. Walderic knew just that. His smile began to irritate the Duchess, becoming a source of hidden irritation and dissatisfaction on her part. Calmly, the man admitted that he had increased the rent in his favor, while the lady did not need the account books that he provided her. Their content is irrelevant in light of current changes. It was extremely unpleasant and even painful for the lady to realize that good people were being deceived and deprived of their honest earnings in such an insidious and dishonest way that left an unpleasant aftertaste. Walderic suggested treating it as an investment, arguing that despite the perceived difficulties, it could lead to significant profits and positive results in the long run. It would be rude to call these mere gifts for the future world. It's better to say that these are a kind of offerings for the new mistress, which are an important part of the preparation for the upcoming changes in the Duke's castle. Hasty footsteps were heard echoing along the corridor, filling the air with anxious anticipation and inexorably approaching the door. This was the Duke for whom so many events were happening at once for the first time. He was thinking about the upcoming visit of the head of the Merchants' Union, sensing that this could be a key moment in the near future. After all, such changes could radically change the timeline. Coming out of the turn, the man's eyes met the stranger standing in the shadow of the corner, and this moment seemed filled with hidden meaning. Waldrick bowed politely, greeting the lord of the manor with due respect and refined grace that emphasized tradition and deep respect for the owner of this stately house. Before leaving, the merchant confirmed that he had settled everything with the aristocrat's wife, assuring that all agreements had been respected, and there were no questions left. At this time, the court magician explained that he could not protect the ships from the storm with the help of magic, since the elements turned out to be too powerful and unpredictable, even for his skillful spells. Tsar did not believe that Waldrick was actually able to receive the blessing of the goddess of the seas, considering it just a lucky coincidence or a clever lie. To this, the guy replied that if the queen really blessed them, then they would have a safe passage across the ocean, even despite all the dangers and storms. When questioned by the courtiers, the nobleman rudely replied that the land was not the first goal of the head of the secret alliance, implying that their interests and plans went far beyond the borders of this region. The duke would gladly get rid of the scoundrel, but he had already made a promise to his beloved that he would not interfere in this situation and would honor his obligations. The red-haired man was given orders to keep an eye on the enemy, while the magician was tasked with strengthening the shore's defenses to ensure safety and prevent possible threats. Tsar knew that a protective barrier was needed, as he sensed that the threats could return again and pose a serious threat. Xenia sat in the library, engrossed in working on documents. Her attention focused on every line and detail, making her work continuous and focused. Although the girl was well-versed in accounting, she still got confused in the numbers, which caused her some confusion and the need for a more thorough check. How the lady got scared when she saw a hand pointing at the paper. Her eyes widened in horror as she realized that this was not just a random movement, but a sign foreshadowing something important and alarming. However, it turned out that it was just the lady's husband who, by accidentally pointing to the document, caused her unnecessary fear and anxiety. The aristocrat pointed out the mistake. An embarrassed expression on her face full of awkwardness and bewilderment appeared when she noticed that her husband was doing something here, despite the fact that he could be busy with something else. The Duke came up with an interesting idea to spend time together and go somewhere to enjoy time together and create new memories. With joy and without the slightest doubt, the maiden accepted the offer, unable to refuse a tempting and charming invitation from a handsome young man whose charm was simply irresistible. Tsar himself began to actively and with great enthusiasm help his beloved with work, trying not only to alleviate her difficulties, but also to demonstrate his sincere support and care. After some time, the Duke was deeply impressed by his wife's intelligence and admired her ability to find solutions in the most difficult situations. However, the girl was not pleased with the praise, since she preferred that her efforts be assessed not in words, but in real results and achievements that clearly demonstrated work and dedication. After thinking about this, Xenia became interested and asked if the man had taught anyone before, to understand how experienced he was in imparting knowledge and skills. A conversation ensued between them, in which the lady openly admitted that she had not asked the Duke on a date and expressed her displeasure and embarrassment at the fact that she was unpleasant to realize that the Duke was thinking about another lady. Tsar began to deny this, insisting that even thinking about any other lady would be absolutely unacceptable for him, and that all his feelings and attention were focused exclusively on her. But Xenia was adamant in her thoughts and feelings, firmly convinced that her dear husband had another woman. A tense silence hung between the married couple, as if an invisible barrier had appeared between them, not allowing any words or emotions to penetrate their conversation. The lady thought that initially her true desire was not so much the young man himself, but his patronage and financial well-being. But from the day they first found themselves in bed together, her feelings and perceptions began to change, and the lady realized that her affection for him had turned from superficial interest to deep and sincere attraction. Xenia gently pressed her palm to her husband's face, as if wanting to convey through this simple gesture all her warmth, care, and deep feelings that could not be expressed in words. The lady understood that she herself suggested starting the relationship with friendship, although she gradually began to feel that the sensations were becoming deeper and stronger than just friendly attraction. Xenia invited her boyfriend to take an important step in their relationship and move to a new stage. But for this, Tsar had to completely exclude thoughts about other girls, focusing all his attention exclusively on her. A trembling ran through the man's body like an electric discharge that pierced him to the very heart. The muscles involuntarily shudder, and a strange at the same time restless feeling arose in the stomach. The lady, feeling irritated that her husband was immersed in his affairs, decisively interrupted his work and insisted on postponing their date to a later time, demonstrating her unyielding determination. Taking the books, Xenia stood up from her workplace, leaving all current affairs, while the Duke, with sincere regret and respect, apologized to her. However, the girl did not listen to her husband's words, remaining angry because he was not going to share important information with her, and continued to remain closed, which only increased irritation. Tears began to flow down the man's face and cheeks, which, like invisible streams, slowly rolled down, leaving behind traces of deep emotions and silent suffering. Xenia was firmly convinced that if she had not told her husband about this, he would have remained completely unaware of how his behavior was perceived by others and what effect it had on the people around him. Deciding to soften up a little, the lady invited her boyfriend to study together or drink tea, hoping that this would help diffuse the situation and restore their mutual understanding. Tsar agreed through tears, trying to contain his emotions and show that he was ready to accept her offer, despite the deep internal struggle. The aristocrat stood up from his seat composedly, and with a certain noble determination, realizing that the time had come to act and change the situation that he could no longer ignore in order to preserve his dignity. Tsar felt guilty and saw how much Xenia resembled her past self, reflecting the same emotions and experiences as before, making him realize the depth of the changes that had occurred in their relationship. The couple's hands joined in a tender and reverent gesture as a symbol of their mutual understanding and support, representing their newfound unity and intimacy. The nobleman tirelessly repeated to himself that he had no right to get even closer to his beloved, feeling internal doubt and struggle, as if his whole nature resisted this emotional attraction. The man had no right to make a mistake, and sincerely hoped that this time his actions would be the last, because his patience and determination were at their limit. The lake glistened under the rays of the sun, reflecting bright spots of light, while the plants along the banks leaned towards the water, creating a green and picturesque frame. The Duke's younger sister admired the picturesque scenery, enjoying the views in the company of the lady and servants, who accompanied her, adding an atmosphere of refined elegance and charm. The ladies decided to have a picnic under the shade of a majestic tree to enjoy the morning sun and fresh air in a cozy and cool environment. Thoughtfully, Xenia thought that it would be nice to bring her husband here to share the beauty of this place and create unforgettable memories together. The multitude of servants, grooms, and footmen accompanying the aristocrats created around them an atmosphere of carefully organized service and respectful attention, reflecting the high status of their masters and providing for their every need with devotion. The lady, having given permission to rest, noticed how one of the courtiers slowly, and with obvious pleasure, headed towards the water, trying to immerse himself in its coolness and peace. Men's shoes made of high-quality leather and with an elegant design smoothly stopped on the sandy shore, absorbing the soft rays of the sun. Suddenly, the water began to rise, slowly wrapping around the nails of my shoes, as if taming them with its calm but inexorable current. A large pillar rapidly soaring into the heavens suddenly frightened the worker, causing him to freeze in amazement and alarm at this sudden and majestic phenomenon. Xenia and her husband's younger sister, shocked and frightened, froze in place, unable to even move from the fear that gripped them at this alarming moment. The monster's paws inexorably sank to the ground, like huge and formidable claws, capable of breaking through even the most durable surface, absorbing everything around with their weight and terrifying force. Terrible creatures with violet scales sparkling in the dim light slid to the ground, like an eerie dream, awakening horror in the hearts of those who dared to look at them. The servants, hearing the threat, immediately rushed to protect the ladies, taking on all the danger with determination and courage in order to maintain their safety. Xenia could not simply abandon its workers and run away alone, leaving them defenseless in the face of the danger that was approaching them, and not extend its support and protection to them at this critical moment. Some of the servants fled in panic to escape the impending danger, while the lady, showing courage and determination, mounted the girl to ensure her safety. After this, the lady quickly jumped on her horse, and without wasting a second, rushed away, wanting to escape the approaching threat as quickly as possible and find safe shelter. Senia realized that her strength to resist was exhausted, and in conditions where every moment could become decisive, she made a wise decision: to hastily escape. An impact occurred, which unfortunately did not cause any harm to the monster, leaving it completely unharmed and ready to continue its destructive actions. Suddenly, as if out of nowhere, Tesser appeared with a sword in his hands, suddenly interrupting what was happening and attracting everyone's attention with his impressive appearance. Ominous black magic emanated from the weapon, shrouding everything around in a dark, mystical light that spread a feeling of deep fear and anxiety, making everyone feel a chill of horror and endless shadow. The aristocrat took a commanding position at the head of the army, and having given the order, began a decisive attack on the monster, leading his soldiers into battle with indomitable determination and courage. When the battle was over, the magician approached the boss and anxiously asked if there would be more monsters, anticipating possible new threats and trying to assess the further threat. However, the Duke did not give an answer, because although previously he could have calmly assumed that everything would end well, changed circumstances now cast doubt on this outcome. Standing in front of the huge serpent, the nobleman realized that the time of the monster's arrival had changed. The guy understood that he was unable to protect his beloved, not knowing what the future would bring, and he felt fear take over his body. Turning away from his subject, the Duke ordered him to deal with the remaining problems himself, thus expressing his determination not to interfere and to rely on the abilities of his subordinate. This threat frightened the man so much that he did not want to be alone against the horde of monsters, feeling that loneliness in such a situation could become fatal. But then Tsar stopped staring in fear in front of him, unable to continue moving and immersed in fear of what he saw. After all, a man with white hair and a formal suit hovered in the air like a ghost in front of him, creating a feeling of mystery and horror. The horse quickly rushed forward, and the girl confidently controlled its powerful movement, demonstrating skill in controlling the animal and confidence in every confident command. But then a black monster suddenly appeared in front of them, absorbing something unknown and causing fear with its ominous appearance and terrible intentions. The horse suddenly stopped obeying and, yelping in fear, almost threw the two ladies off, throwing them up and leaving them hanging in the air before they could grab the reins again. The ladies fell to the ground and, frightened by what had happened, the animal, with one last frightened glance, quickly galloped away, leaving them alone and without help in this dangerous and unpredictable place. Serendia could not get up, and while she remained on the ground, Senia looked around, realizing that evil monsters had gathered around them, ready to strike at any moment. While the monsters were fighting among themselves, the ladies had precious time to attempt an escape, taking advantage of the moment of confusion and chaos in the environment. Having defeated the remaining creatures, the terrible monster, with inexorable rage and determination, quickly rushed in pursuit of the ladies, deciding not to miss the chance to catch up with them and eliminate them, leaving not the slightest chance of salvation. The lady was genuinely frightened by the power that came from the creature, and the fear was intensified by the knowledge that she was facing something truly terrible and uncontrollable. Having found a small cave, the girl decided to hide the girl there, hoping that this shelter would provide at least temporary safety and protection from danger. She herself threw a stone at the monster, deliberately attracting its attention in order to distract it from the cave where the Duke's sister was hiding and drive it away, ensuring her safety. Thus began an intense chase between the lady and the evil creature, where every moment was filled with fear and determination, and the struggle for survival became a matter of life and death. Senya stopped only when she reached a cliff where her path was interrupted, and she was faced with a desperate choice. Experiencing horror, the lady realized that she had to pull herself together and make a decisive choice that would determine the future fate and the fate of those she was trying to protect. The monster was already very close, ready to devour its victim, its ominous appearance and threatening roar filling the air with fear. Memories of her husband, to whom the aristocrat had to say something important, surfaced in her head, and this thought added even more fear and anxiety, realizing that now she might not have time to fulfill her promise. The lady, as if struck by invisible lightning, opened her mouth in complete shock and surprise. Her large eyes sparkled like stars in the night sky, reflecting the radiance. Golden threads were wrapped around her paw, not allowing her to even move, as if magic ropes were holding her motionless, turning her into a prisoner of this unusual beauty. A bright yellow light suddenly appeared around the girl, as if an invisible source of light enveloped and gave everything around her an extraordinary warm glow. A strange voice in her head forced the lady to move and concentrate, forcing her to look for a way to find a way out, not giving rest and directing her thoughts in search of a solution. As Xenia accepted her terrible fate, another voice pierced the woman's consciousness, saying that it was too early to give up and instilling hope for a way out of the difficult situation. She watched in surprise and awe as the huge monster, its face contorted in pain, was pierced by the tip of the stick, piercing its powerful body and causing a dull scream from the unexpected blow. While Derek stood nearby, silent and concentrated, and next to him was a girl who was calling her big sister. When asked how he ended up in the forest, the man replied that it was an accident, and then, showing concern, asked about the girl's well-being, clearly interested in her condition. All trembling with fear and excitement, Xenia sincerely thanked her friend for the help provided. Her voice was filled with deep gratitude and awe, reflecting sincere emotions and gratitude. The lady was aware that her legs were unresponsive, as if they were paralyzed by fear or fatigue, preventing her from moving and making her feel hopeless about her situation. Suddenly, a blue portal appeared above the people, sparkling with bright lights and emitting a mysterious glow, making them freeze in surprise and anticipation of what would happen next. A man's hand appeared from the portal, stretched out with a decisive gesture, and as if reaching out to them from the unknown, causing a feeling of anxiety. Behind the hand, the husband's face suddenly appeared, expressing deep anxiety and concern for his wife. He was filled with undying anxiety for her well-being. Xenia smiled widely when she recognized her loved one. The face lit up with a radiance of joy and warmth, as if all worries had disappeared, leaving only a feeling of happiness and deep satisfaction. The aristocrat tremblingly rushed to his beloved, hugging her with tenderness and passion, as if he wanted to convey all his love and affection in this embrace. At this time, Waldrick asked the servant to take the girl to a safe place to ensure protection and peace of mind, while he focused on more urgent matters. Tsar, filled with deep remorse for his actions, with sincere regret, and a sincere desire to correct his mistakes, begged the girl's forgiveness, hoping in this way to atone for his crimes. Xenia, noticing her husband's anxiety, hastened to calm him down, assuring him that another person had come to the rescue and that everything was now in perfect order. The Duke, turning to the other young man, hastened to express his deep gratitude, feeling the need to show his sincere gratitude. A negative aura suddenly appeared around the aristocrat, which caused the man to worry and question what the head of the Union was doing in such a place. Waldrick, with a slight wave of his hand, waved away the question, saying with some degree of irritation and weariness that it was just a simple accident not worthy of attention. The man, not believing the merchant's words with suspicion and a frown, slowly drew his sword and cautiously pointed it at his interlocutor, expecting further explanations and revelation of his true intentions. The Duke, with icy determination in his eyes, ordered his interlocutor to immediately stop lying, and added that he must stop lying. Otherwise, the consequences would be serious. Blood appeared on the merchant's cheek, staining his face and emphasizing the seriousness of the situation, which added additional drama and tension to what was happening. Using magic, the aristocrat made the lady lose consciousness, and then when the man came to his senses, he stared at him and threateningly warned that if he did not tell the truth, he would lose his head. Smiling, the guy noticed that it seemed that the Duke really loved the maiden, since he decided to use a spell on her to achieve his goal. Tsar said contemptuously that apparently the Duke did not value his own life, since he so easily risks it for his own purposes, without considering it necessary to show reason and caution. Standing next to the Duke's sword, the merchant admitted that it was not his doing, and that he had not summoned the monsters, humbly expecting that his words would help avoid further consequences. All Waldrick was trying to do was make sure that the aristocrat actually acted with sincere intentions towards the Duchess, in order to clarify the true motives and avoid possible misunderstandings. Xenia slept sweetly in her husband's arms. Her body was completely relaxed, and her face expressed deep peace and contentment, as if she was in the most comfortable and protected place in the world. Walderick said that sometimes our intentions inevitably go hand in hand with the shadow, as if hiding behind dark sides that we are not always aware of. The man noted that he would take all possible measures for his safety when the inevitable threat finally overtakes him, thereby showing his foresight and determination. The Duke had never dealt with this merchant before. It was known that a person capable of unraveling the prophecy was supposed to appear in the imperial palace only a year later. Suddenly, a sharp blade cut through the body of the head of the Union, and a bloody stream like a scarlet river gushed out, flooding everything around and plunging the scene into terrifying silence. Walderick jerked from a sudden and sharp pain that pierced him, causing his body to shudder from the excruciating sensations. The merchant collapsed limply to the ground. The body, as if exhausted by its last strength, fell sharply to the ground, deprived of vitality and the opportunity to rise again like an exhausted doll left to the mercy of fate. The man could not believe that the aristocrat dared to close his eyes to the gods, rejecting their divine influence and neglecting the sacred laws. Tsar tightened his grip on the sword in his hand, feeling his fingers confidently clasp the hilt, which had seen many battles, and was now ready for new challenges. Coldly, the nobleman reported that the guy should not have even tried to interfere in this matter, considering his participation completely inappropriate and inappropriate. Another blow was struck, aimed directly at the chest of the unfortunate merchant, who had already suffered from previous attacks and was now in deep despair. Soap bubbles began to appear on the clothes, as if invisible hands were gently blowing them away from the fabric, leaving behind intricate and sparkling patterns that shimmered in the sunlight. The number of bubbles rapidly increased, and soon they formed a solid wall so that the entire surrounding world was covered in them, as if in a bewitching, sparkling blanket. Tesser became convinced that this Walderick was just a clone of the real one, when after destroying the man's body, there was nothing left but empty space and water. Tsar knew that the blow would still hit the real body, and knew that it would cause significant damage, leaving him unable to move for some time. Fearing that any changes in the future could harm his beloved the aristocrat, pressed the lady closer to him, trying to protect her from any possible consequences. The lady was carefully laid on the bed, so that she could sit comfortably on the pillow and rest, regaining her strength after the experience. When Xenia began to wake up, Tesser immediately asked how she was feeling, showing deep concern for her well-being after the baby had spent some time half asleep. Rubbing her eyes, the girl replied that she was fine, trying to convince others that she felt better, and was ready to continue the conversation with the same enthusiasm. When Xenia woke up, she immediately began persistently asking what exactly her husband had done to their savior, and whether he was still alive, showing deep and sincere concern for his fate, as if the woman's heart was already attached to him. The Duke admitted that, fortunately, everything was in order with the merchant, but several workers were hurt and injured. The situation was unpleasant, but at least it did not lead to serious consequences. If it were not for that shield, which at the last moment protected her from the deadly attack of the monster, the lady most likely would not have survived and would have died on the spot. When asked whether the aristocrat had assigned someone to his beloved, the husband immediately called his assistant, named Asta, to provide all the necessary clarifications. Suddenly, a man with white hair and pale eyes appeared next to the mirror, like a ghost, indistinguishable from the fog and mysterious radiance. This man turned out to be the one who helped the lady in need by placing a barrier between the monster and her, providing protection and salvation at a critical moment. It turned out that it was a ghostly entity with blonde hair, which was constantly next to the mistress, even when she was sleeping, invisibly guarding her. Bowing respectfully, Asta apologized for dividing her forces the day before and failing to fully protect her mistress, expressing sincere regret and desire to correct her mistake. Tsar explained that he immediately opened the portal as soon as he heard his subordinate's cry, but unfortunately did not make it in time. He felt deep guilt for not being able to protect his beloved. However, Xenia surprised the man by saying that there was no need for this, reassuring him and expressing gratitude for his efforts and care. Tsar froze in surprise when he heard from his wife that she was determined to become stronger. These words came as a shock, and the guy felt mixed emotions of respect and admiration. Xenia was determined to learn swordsmanship and magic, determined to master these arts in order to become stronger and more independent. After listening to his wife's request, the man, with regret and sincere respect, refused her, explaining that this was the only request that he could not fulfill under any circumstances. The lady was deeply upset by the refusal, especially considering that Tsar had previously assured her that he would do everything possible for his beloved, sparing neither effort nor money. Xenia firmly stated that although Tsar may not have participated in women's endeavors, he had no right to become an obstacle on the difficult path. The girl asked to teach her magic, hoping that the request would be granted, and she would have the opportunity to master this mysterious and bewitching art. The court magician, deeply surprised and stunned, recoiled, not believing his eyes and ears, when he realized that the Duchess had turned to him with a request. The girl turned to the knight with a desire to teach her the art of wielding a sword, hoping that his skill and experience would help her master this noble and complex art. The court swordsman warned that the girl's hands could become very rough from constant contact with the blade, while the wizard standing behind was indignant and could not come to terms with what was happening. But the lady was adamant. She believed that it was better to die fighting for her life than to suffer from powerlessness and inaction, unable to fulfill her dream. A tense silence hung between the people, permeated with an indescribable atmosphere of expectation and internal conflict, as if each of them was immersed in their own torment and did not dare to take the first step. When asked what Xenia said to the Duke, the maiden suddenly began to get angry, and her sudden anger frightened the employees so much that they, amazed by her reaction, froze in fear and confusion. Exclaiming aggressively, the lady ordered the aristocrat's servants to decide whether they were ready to provide the lady with the necessary training or not, leaving tense anticipation in the air. Turning to his friend, the magician insistently clarified whether the master's wife was in the room to make sure that the female presence would not interfere with their conversation. The guy began blaming his brother for fighting because he decided to fulfill the lady's request, which in his opinion led to many problems. Sighing heavily, the knight asked his partner to treat his lady with due respect and carefully consider her words in order to avoid unnecessary conflicts and misunderstandings. Irritably, the wizard said that he was not going to show respect to the commoner because he considered the girl unworthy of such treatment. The friend added that he should have at least checked the mistress, since magic could not be taught, unless a person had innate abilities and inclinations. During the conversation, the topic was brought up that the lady's brother had magic, and it was likely that this ability was present in the entire family. At that moment, the guys were joined by another person who entered the room. Xenia appeared like a devil emerging from the shadows behind the magician, and frightening him, declared that she was ready to follow him even to hell if only he would teach her magic. Persistently, the Duchess begged the employee to conduct a thorough examination of her abilities, confident that a professional opinion would help her discover her hidden talents and capabilities. Turning away, the magician insisted that the lady go to study at the academy, confident that studying at a prestigious institution would help her reach new heights. When the mistress called the guy the most powerful magician, he blushed embarrassedly, feeling his heart beat faster from the unexpected compliment. Xenia strived to learn from the best, wanting to gain knowledge and skills from the most eminent masters in their field. Realizing that in this way she could win the wizard's trust, the lady began to shower him with compliments, hoping that her praise would strengthen their mutual respect and affection. From pride, even the magician's nose became noticeably longer, and he, realizing that the lady was expressing such sincere gratitude, decided that he would certainly teach all the secrets of magic. Taking the glass in his hands, the guy placed his palm on top, from which a mysterious, luminous stream emerged, illuminating the object with a magical radiance. When the girl dipped her finger into the water, real magic happened. The water began to glow and sparkle, as if it came to life under the touch. The Duke's courtier ordered that the ward now imagine that she was controlling the liquid, as if conducting the movements with magical grace and control. The water began to gradually overflow over the edge of the glass, as if under the influence of invisible magic, caused by the whim and silent desire of the girl. The mentor, in a stern voice, ordered the student not to remove her finger from the place where it was secured, emphasizing the importance of strictly following the instructions. Xenia was completely confused, not knowing how to effectively stop the flow of liquid that suddenly began to spill around randomly. Ultimately, the lady mastered the art of controlling her powers, and the liquid that had previously been splashing uncontrollably now flowed in different directions at her will. The guys were completely shocked and amazed at how quickly the girl learned to perform such complex and impressive tricks, demonstrating incredible skills. The water suddenly stopped moving, and a deep silence reigned around, as if the whole world stood still in anticipation, immersed in endless silence in which every sound seemed to be an echo of the distant past. The magician, showing sincere curiosity and a desire to understand the inner world, asked the lady what she was silently thinking about and what feelings filled her while she performed her bewitching and amazing miracles. Xenia answered honestly that in order to return the water to its place, she had to plunge into deep thoughts about how she could turn back time and correct the broken order. After that, the man gave the order that she concentrate on thinking about how to properly freeze the liquid without removing her finger from the process. Suddenly, the contents of the glass froze, and the magic manifested itself in full, filling the room with a mysterious glow and magical cold that enveloped everything around. Surprised that the heroine had the ability to perform magic so easily and masterfully, the magician inquired with interest about her origin and immediately ordered her to follow him. Xenia was shocked by how quickly the man's opinion changed. He now demanded that the student focus exclusively on learning magic, abandoning the use of a sword. A majestic ivory tower appeared on the horizon. Its smooth and shiny surface shimmered in the rays of the setting sun, giving the whole landscape a mysterious and bewitching charm. Entering the building, the magician explained that this place was intended exclusively for the most authoritative wizards, those who had reached the highest heights of skill and had unquestioned respect among their colleagues. The guy gave his new student a clear order to focus on the inner feeling of energy and then reproduce the same trick with water to demonstrate control over the elements. Her task was to carefully take a vase of magical liquid and gently dip her finger into it to demonstrate her mastery of magic, confidently displaying her magical abilities. Obeying the wizard's instructions, Xenia carefully dipped her finger into the vase of the mysterious liquid, as instructed, feeling the magic mysteriously awaken in her skin. A bright light suddenly flashed from under the hand, which enveloped everything around in a soft and mysterious glow, filling the air with a magical atmosphere and creating a feeling of incredible miracle. All the contents became as golden as the sun's rays, shimmering at dawn, giving everything around a noble shine and magical charm. Mysterious letters began to appear on the surface, like hidden messages, which gradually emerged, adding a mysterious and mystical character to the entire surrounding space. Ancient symbols began to wrap around the girl's hand, like living ribbons writhing across her skin and creating the feeling of an ancient magical ritual sign. The wizard was completely shocked by the power and strength of his mistress and student, unable to believe the greatness of their magical abilities, which manifested themselves in all their unexpected and stunning fullness. Memories of a conversation with the Duke, who predicted the imminent end of the world, warning of an impending threat and inevitable disaster, surfaced in my memory. The magician remembered the prophecy about the appearance of a golden warrior who was supposed to save the entire earth from the impending darkness. Inspired by this realization, he began to whisper a spell, hoping for a miracle. Xenia felt a pleasant warmth that gently enveloped her, giving her a feeling of comfort and security, like the gentle embrace of the summer sun warming her from the inside. The man thought about who his companion was calling her a polymorphic dragon, and soon an aura of light began to appear over him. The guy asked the girl with interest if she realized what kind of magical art he had just used, and whether this could leave her with the impression of extraordinary abilities. The magician explained that what he had just used was called cessation, or resumption, while what the lady had said was release. Apparently, Xenia unknowingly used this magic. The lady asked to explain what exactly the wizard meant when he mentioned various spells and what meanings they had in the context of the magic he was talking about. The wizard decided to demonstrate what he meant, and a sparkling magical sphere appeared in his hands, illuminating the space around it with mystical light. The sphere was created from what was around, The thing absorbed elements of the environment, their colors and textures creating a unique and mesmerizing spectacle. The man cast a spell, and the ball instantly changed its shape, turning into something new and unexpected, with a mysterious shine and complex texture. Xenia was amazed when she saw the ice sphere begin to melt and disappear as if burning, leaving behind only a warm glow and light steam. Frowning, the magician explained that he was the best on this earth, as he had mastery in the use of spells, which allowed him to surpass others in his field. Therefore, the man was pleasantly surprised to find that he was not one of a kind when the lady used words that demonstrated her own unique magical abilities. At that moment, Xenia realized that she herself had magical abilities, opening up new horizons and opportunities for herself that she had never even imagined before. While discussing the magical flow of energy, the wizard suggested, telling the girl's husband that he planned to teach her magic, emphasizing that this knowledge could be useful for him too. Sighing heavily, the lady said that Tsar already knew that a committed mentor would train his wife, adding with slight irony that this would certainly strengthen their union and bear fruit. The Duke, sitting over documents in his office, was asked about the quarrel with his wife, noting how much it affected their relationship and work environment. It was Whale who urgently demanded that the gentleman apologize to the girl for his behavior, showing respect and understanding for feelings. The Duke strictly stated that this was his wife's wish, and he was not going to deviate from her will, demonstrating firmness and devotion to his word. The aristocrat not only agreed that Xenia was stronger than the dragon, but also recognized with deep respect her courage, resilience, and incredible strength. Leaning towards the owner, Whale respectfully asked if he needed a person with power, greater than the power of the dragon itself, to prevent a great catastrophe. Vivid memories began to emerge in my head of how the lady fought on the battlefield with majestic grace and determination, not inferior in strength and courage to even the most seasoned warriors. With cold calm, the nobleman asked the question about what it was impossible to stop the destruction of the world, without realizing that this answer would determine the fate of all living. Then it came to mind how the maiden with golden hair won the battle, but never returned from the battlefield, leaving a deep wound in the Duke's heart that has not healed to this day. Tsar had given permission for fencing lessons, but did not recall the lady showing any significant magical abilities, which surprised him given her remarkable skills in other areas. The Duke stated that 1 year was enough for Xenia to master professional sword skills, demonstrating her dedication and commitment to excellence. Smiling, Tsar asked his friend to teach the lady everything she wanted, emphasizing his respect for her aspirations and openness to new knowledge. The knight ordered his ward to run 10 laps around the estate, testing her endurance and readiness for the upcoming tests. He stood in the spacious courtyard, enjoying the warm sunshine, along with a lady who was eagerly awaiting the start of the training. When asked when sword training would finally begin, the man explained that it was first necessary to gain physical strength in order for the training to be effective and safe. Determined, Xenia decided to start running, confident that only intense training and full dedication could lead to the desired results. During the conversation, she explained in detail that she strives to master not only magic, but also the art of wielding weapons in order to become a truly versatile master. The guy explained that during battle, mages were valuable units that needed to be protected, since their abilities played a key role in the outcome of battles. To this, Xenia stated with determination that her ambition is to become not just someone who needs to be protected, but someone who is able to protect others and take an active part in keeping them safe. Smiling, the knight watched with pleasure as the lady enthusiastically began her training, pleased that she was actively engaged and striving for perfection. After several days of intense and grueling training, full of endless fatigue, Xenia, completely exhausted, finally collapsed on the bed, like a fluttering leaf in the wind. Despite the fact that the week was filled with grueling training, the lady did not lose joy from her achievements, as each step brought her closer to her long-awaited goal and inspired her to further efforts. Rising from her seat and heading out in search of her husband, the Duchess was fully thinking about where he could be at the moment, anxiously and persistently wanting to find him. Raising her hand and persistently knocking on the door, Xenia, despite her worries, tried to make herself look confident and calm. When the lady, hot and angry that they did not open the door for her, began to persistently knock on the door. The Duke suddenly came out of the room, all wet after a hot shower, and looked at her in bewilderment. Without waiting for his wife to appear, the handsome man unexpectedly and spontaneously called her by name, which caused him a feeling of shock and awkwardness. Not noticing anything around and absorbed in her experiences, Xenia anxiously asked the man why he did not open the door for her, expressing her emotions and anxiety. Excusing himself by saying that he did not know what to do, since his beloved came to him first. The aristocrat invited his wife inside, trying to compensate for his misunderstanding. Irritated, the lady asked whether the Duke really didn't care why she came, because he, as a person with subtle taste and the ability to understand others, should have shown interest in such an important event. When the guy asked if he was causing her inconvenience, the girl became even more angry. His face flushed with rage, and the fire of indignation lit up in his eyes. The man apologized to his wife for being rude, sincerely repenting for his behavior, and hoping for understanding and forgiveness, promising to show more respect and sensitivity in the future. Evil Xenia said that this was not the time for such a conversation, and the woman's words sounded like a reproach to an attempt at discussion that came at the wrong time. Xenia was worried about only one thing: whether the Duke was going to continue to ignore his wife, or would he finally realize the severity of his behavior and change his attitude to restore their relationship. Looking down, the aristocrat admitted that he was thinking that he was interfering with the lady, and that she probably did not want to see her husband, which made him feel guilty for his interference. The beauty lowered her head, trying to understand the reason for such strange behavior of the aristocrat, who seemed to violate all generally accepted norms and expectations, creating an intriguing atmosphere of uncertainty. The hand on which the ring glittered slowly fell onto a stronger and more reliable palm, feeling a strong and confident touch. Finally, the lady asked if it bothered the man that Xenia wanted to learn how to use weapons and magic, and how this might affect his attitude towards her. Tsar replied that his concern was that over time, his wife might become disillusioned with her strength, a revelation that surprised his interlocutor. Looking at his beloved, the man warned that great power could harm the owner, causing potential dangers and consequences that must be taken into account in order to avoid unforeseen troubles. Taking the lady by the hand, he asked her that at least in this life, she should not think about battles and not torment her heart, but concentrate on taking care of herself and her own well-being. Looking into the blue eyes, the aristocrat asked why the lady always tried so desperately to protect others, despite her own difficulties and risks. Xenia opened her eyes in surprise, unable to comprehend what exactly her dear husband was talking about, looking for a meaning in his words that eluded her understanding. Tsar said that the happiness of spouses should not depend on the opinions and actions of the people around them, but should come from inner understanding and respect for each other. The strong palm was in no hurry to let go of the fragile wrist, as if trying to maintain gentle contact and protect from any possible harm. Finally, the Duke admitted that he was deeply afraid that the maiden, having gained power, might leave and disappear from their lives forever, leaving the aristocrats alone and depriving them of the reason for their existence. Suddenly, two hands quickly and forcefully slapped the guy's cheeks, causing him a shocking feeling of surprise and slight discomfort. Xenia, with gentle insistence, asked her husband to pull himself together so that he could calmly and consciously approach the solution to current difficulties without allowing emotions to take over him completely. While the nobleman, overwhelmed with guilt for accidentally causing pain to his beloved, worried about his actions, the lady, with a slight note of fear in her voice, asked him to look into her eyes. The lady solemnly swore that she would not leave her beloved, but on the contrary would become stronger in order to gain enough strength to protect and support in any trials. Tsar blushed embarrassedly, his face turning a deep shade of pink as he felt awkward and unsure of how to properly react to the situation. After the lady, who had blushed a deep shade of red, collected her thoughts, she asked hopefully if they were ready to remain friends or move on to something more. When asked to clarify what exactly she meant, Xenia explained that she wanted to start their relationship as a friendship, but did not intend to end it only at this stage. Having asked for forgiveness for her temper, the lady, with a sincere pleading look, asked her husband to no longer avoid or ignore her, hoping for the restoration of their relationship and open dialogue. The girl opened her arms in an inviting gesture and said that, in honor of reconciliation, it would be appropriate to hug in order to express her sincere readiness to restore mutual understanding. Without thinking for a long time, the Duke tenderly touched his beloved, tenderly and reverently, as if trying to convey all his love and support at this good moment. Emotions sparkled between the pair of lovers, like magical sparks, conveying their deep attraction and mutual attraction. The Duke recalled that he should not have gone beyond what was permitted, but he could not help himself and his feelings, which at that moment took precedence over his cold mind and behavior. The aristocrat carefully moved the lady away from him, thereby expressing his desire to distance himself a little, although Xenia was not at all against love and the continuation of their relationship. The girl's hands were sweaty with excitement, and feeling her heart pounding in her chest, she excitedly told the Duke that he could kiss as much as he wanted, emphasizing his readiness and sincere feelings. The couple's faces came closer, and a tense but tender intimacy arose between them when they seemed ready to exchange the most intimate things. After that, their lips touched carefully, and they exchanged a kiss, which became a symbol of their reconciliation and deep connection. The man admitted that every time he meets his beloved, his heart is literally filled with a violent desire to express his feelings through a tender and passionate act. The man's fingers carefully supported the girl's chin, while she looked at him with a half-lidded gaze full of mysterious charm. Hands intertwined, like two inseparable streams, merging in a single impulse of tenderness and mutual understanding, creating a feeling of absolute harmony and mutual connection. The irritated court magician persistently asked the man standing nearby to take some action towards the other, who was clearly in the way. Pointing his finger at a figure barely visible in the darkness, the wizard ordered the use of magic on the husband who could not leave his wife alone with another man, thus showing care and protection. The Duke flinched in surprise as his covers were blown, and he found himself fully under the gaze of those around him. Xenia cast a spell in which ice butterflies flickered, and soon magnificent crystals of ice appeared in her hands, sparkling like precious stones. The butterflies, fluttering their fragile wings, headed towards the aristocrat, creating a magical and bewitching dance in the air. The lady gave her husband a gentle smile, filled with warmth and affection, trying to express all her feelings and care with one simple gesture. The look was full of love and deep understanding. The Duke's cheeks trembled with shame and turned red under the influence of close and inevitable attention, filling with red paint. Upon approaching the company, Tsar noticed how much his wife had learned and was amazed at the rapid progress and new skills she demonstrated. When the magician showed disrespect, the nobleman gave him an angry look and, with unyielding insistence, ordered him to stop his rudeness, demanding from him respect for the lady and dignity, as if warning him against further insults. Turning to his beloved, Tsar changed his anger to mercy, amazed by the kindness and nobility of a woman's heart, which sparkled in her blue eyes like the rays of the sun. Gently touching her forehead with his lips, the guy gave the lady a kiss, which was filled with such tenderness and warmth that it seemed to envelop the soul, giving a feeling of sincere and boundless love. Moreover, Tsar was ready to set aside special time just to simply look at his wife, enjoying every moment of the maiden's presence and immersing himself in the atmosphere of beauty. With a smile on her lips, Xenia began to share her achievements and successes in training with the knight, as well as in mastering the sword, burning with joy and pride at her achievements. She then added that it would be very interesting to focus on one aspect in order to dive deeper into learning and improving skills in that particular area, achieving greater mastery. The Duke was confident that Xenia would become an outstanding magician and a wonderful warrior, combining skills and qualities that would allow her to achieve great heights in both directions. The girl thanked her husband for his praise, saying that she would try her best to live up to expectations and achieve the best results in her efforts. Tsar gave the lady valuable advice. In order to better cope with the knight in battle, she should use magic, which will help not only win, but also show her true skill in the fight. Previously, Xenia had not even thought about using spells in battle, believing that magic would not be useful in such brutal and intense fights, where it seemed that simply physical strength and skill with weapons were more important. The man thinking about this explained that she could not use the resurrection spell, since it could take the life of the girl herself, which would be extremely dangerous and unacceptable. Smiling, the student invited her teacher to go back, hoping that this would help them find a more effective solution to their problem and return to learning. In his past life, Tsar wore a servant's outfit and refused to participate in battle, claiming that he was poor with a sword and was unable to fight honorably. Looking at the tired guys, he asked the strong lady if she had finished her workout, wondering how tired she was and whether she was ready to continue training. Tsar was amazed by the Empress's offer to train a courtier to wield a sword and did not know how to respond to this unexpected and significant proposal. He sought to gain the favor of the ruler, therefore, despite his doubts, he agreed to accept the offer, seeing this as a chance to strengthen his position and earn her trust. Quietly and peacefully, Ardiel watched the training lost in his thoughts, and appreciating the skill of the participants with a calm expression on his face. Xenia cast spells using magical shields and seals to create protection and strengthen her spell, giving it additional power and complexity. She then rushed towards her opponent to deliver a decisive strike, with her sword combining her magical defense with an aggressive attack. With a loud and sharp sound, one blade collided with the other, producing an unpleasant metallic sound that reminded of the tension and power of battle, penetrating into the very depths of the heart and mind. Suddenly, golden magical ropes sparkling in the light surrounded the knight, binding him and restricting his movements with precision and grace. The lady thought that the victory was hers and was about to celebrate her success, but to her surprise, she stopped when she saw something strange and unpredictable, which violated the confidence in the outcome of the fight. Red fire, sparkling and glowing in the darkness, surrounded the opponent's hand, giving a mystical and threatening appearance. Despite this fiery environment, the man stood unconquered and unharmed, without any visible wounds. The Duke, with an expression of deep interest on his face, watched as his subordinate confidently and in detail explained that he possessed a powerful force capable of destroying any magic encountered along the way. With a smile, the knight gave advice to his student that after the end of the battle, she should dispel her magic in order not only to free up space from residual spells, but also to facilitate recovery after an intense battle. Xenia shared that casting spells was not tiring, and she could cast spells all day long without getting tired, enjoying the process of magical creation. This surprised the guard, because he knew that practicing magic all day was a difficult task that required considerable effort and concentration. And Tsar noted that it would take only a year for a lady to fully master the art of the blade, thereby demonstrating incredible dedication and perseverance in her training. The Duke was sure that everything should have ended exactly as his intuition and deep understanding of upcoming events predicted. Xenia agreed to continue to be trained by another mentor, who had the ability to bring fresh ideas and unique knowledge that would expand her skills and help her explore new horizons. Tsar stood up and walked towards them. It was he who was the new teacher, who was supposed to instruct the lady and reveal new knowledge to her. Surprised and a little worried, she turned to her husband with the question of whether she could significantly expand her skills and abilities in handling weapons, given that interest in this art had only increased every day. Xenia clarified whether the lovely husband will be involved in training, since this is an important aspect of their joint plans, and the lady wants to be sure that all the details are taken into account. Modestly and with courtesy, the Duke replied that if this were the Duchess's desire, he would be happy to fulfill the request and provide the necessary assistance. Smiling sweetly, Orton admitted that it was even better since the aristocrat always warned the servant before each lesson and warned the guy not to even think about harming the lady. Tesser was embarrassed by such a confession and cursed his good friend, who despite his merits was noticeably popular with women. Deciding to interrupt the conversation between his comrades, the aristocrat intervened, ordering his subordinate to leave on business in order to free up time for a more important discussion. Xenia asked her husband why he did not say that he himself would like to train his wife, instead of leaving the matter vague. Deciding to play a joke on her husband, the girl admired how attentive Orton was before the birth of children, emphasizing that this quality would remain high, even in their current circumstances. After that, the girl continued to praise the beauty of the knight, which made the Duke sigh heavily, clearly feeling annoyed by the stupid jokes. Serendia noted how the relationship between brother and lady had improved, noting that their interactions had become much more harmonious and trusting. Such words caused embarrassment in the aristocrat, which led to slight confusion and bewilderment, since she was not ready for such expressions in such a context. Serendia added that Xenia spent her free time with her husband despite classes and studies, which emphasized their strong connection and mutual affection. After this, the girl said that everything was in order, despite the fact that she still felt hostility towards her bad relative. The little lady knew that her older sister cared about her, and this awareness gave her a sense of security and confidence, despite all the difficulties and misunderstandings. The little girl modestly admitted that she watches the lady with great delight and envy, and dreams of becoming the same when she grows up. She sees in her not only a role model, but also a source of inspiration. With anger and obvious irritation, Ardiel greeted the guest, reminding him that he was late for the appointed meeting, his voice trembling with rage and condemnation. Every word was filled with discontent and reproach. With a smile, Waldrick advised the aristocrat to have patience in order to cope with the difficulties that arise, and to show restraint in a difficult situation, recalling that patience is the key to successfully overcoming any obstacles. Tesser reminded the traitor that he should be glad that he was alive, and see it as a blessing, not as a reason for discontent. With an empty and thoughtful look, Waldrick said that the sea was unhappy. In the dark waters, a storm of discontent lurked, reflecting his own disappointment and anxiety. The aristocrat doubted that Melena, the goddess of the seas, would worry about the death of another person, believing that her concerns and attention were focused on more significant and large-scale phenomena that concern the kingdom and the sea itself. With a smile on his lips, the man declared that he was the son of a goddess, saying this with a slight amount of pride and confidence, as if this title gave him special significance and distinguished him from others. After this, he explained to the Duke that for the Water Queen, it was just ordinary entertainment, not worthy of special attention or excitement. Not wanting to beat around the bush, Tsar decided to immediately begin the main topic of conversation, so as not to waste time on unnecessary preludes and focus on the essence of the issue. With a smile, the head of the Union recalled the words of his ancestors, that the aristocrat closed his eyes before the gods, as if refusing to see and acknowledge their influence and significance in his life. In his hand was a bottle with a blue liquid, inside of which thin bubbles shimmered, creating the illusion of living light and mystery. The man proudly stated that he received this gift from his mother, emphasizing that such a special gift, filled with deep meaning and value, was given to him with love and care. The nobleman's eyes opened wide in deep surprise, unable to believe what he had just heard. His face was distorted by an expression of shock and bewilderment, as if an incredible truth had been revealed to him. The bottle was of particular value, because being under the patronage of the goddess of the seas, it allowed its owner to hide from the gaze of other gods, providing a rare opportunity to remain unnoticed. Serendia expressed her request to go to the academy to study speaking with hope and excitement about her aspirations and desire to acquire new knowledge in this prestigious place. 3 people sat at the table: Xenia, as well as her family, consisting of a brother and sister. Each of them was immersed in their own thoughts, but there was a close connection and support between them. The girl dreamed of possessing a magic sword and finding out if she had the ability to do magic, which greatly surprised the lady with red hair, who did not expect such bold and unusual desires from her. The little girl objected to her brother's words about the need to study in the current lands because she wanted to go to the capital to study there and make her dreams come true. Serendia loudly declared that since she stayed with her brother, she would now bother him. He now had no right to peace. After this, the little girl added, with a mischievous smile, that she would take the Duke's wife with her if he treated her badly, hinting that she would not tolerate injustice and was ready to protect those who were dear to her. This statement surprised the aristocrat, causing him to freeze for a moment, realizing that even a little girl is capable of showing courage and determination in such an unexpected situation. The hand extended forward, holding out the bottle, and its owner promised to hide his interlocutor for a whole month before other people had time to find the maiden he had promised. Walderic explained to the Duke that those people, no matter what, will find the one who is able to stop the impending catastrophe using any possible ways and means to do this. When asked what to do with the bottle in the man's hand, another interlocutor replied that he should drink the contents to find out what it is and what consequences it can cause. Walderic himself benefited from the aristocrat's help, but only after he had fulfilled his promise that the flask would have the necessary effect and contribute to solving the problem at hand. Tsar persistently asked what exactly the merchant's god wanted, insisting on receiving a clear answer in order to understand what requirements or wishes might influence further actions and decisions. The man conveyed the words of his mother that the time had come for the last flower to bloom, hinting at the approach of an important moment when something significant and long awaited should be given the opportunity to complete. Holding a bottle in his hand, Tsar thought about how the course of events had changed and that the palace might soon learn about his wife's abilities, which would affect their future plans and relationships. Wanting to delay the onset of difficult times, the nobleman drank the liquid in one gulp without hesitation or doubt, hoping that this action would change the current situation and provide him with the necessary advantage. Dutifully, Ardiel agreed to let Serendia go where she wanted, recognizing the desire and willingness to support her aspirations, despite possible difficulties or contradictions. The nobleman told his younger sister that her salvation was not due to the fact that she was helpless and had nothing to do with what happened, emphasizing that the baby's situation did not affect the course of events. Tsar added that what happened at the behest of their mother, who wished that everything would turn out this way, regardless of the circumstances. Serendia asked her brother to tell her everything, even if it was painful, without hiding the truth, and without avoiding sensitive moments because she wanted to know everything to the end. Xenia reassured her husband, who doubted his decision to tell his sister the truth. The lady assured him that honesty and openness were important, and that such a decision, although difficult, would strengthen their relationship. After the guy's words, the little girl was outraged that he lied all the time, despite the fact that he followed their mother's instructions. This only increased frustration and dissatisfaction. Large tears flowed down the girl's cheeks, as if she could not contain her grief and disappointment. And each dripping was evidence of deep emotions and suffering. Wiping the moisture from her eyes, the little lady called her brother a fool, her voice trembling with resentment and disappointment. Every word was permeated with pain and dissatisfaction. Smiling sweetly, Xenia tried to cheer her husband up, saying that she had similar relationships with her younger brothers and sisters, and assuring him that things weren't all bad with the Duke's family. But in the distant past, Serendia, with a bright smile in her cute dress, ran towards her brother. Her joyful face beamed with happiness as the little girl yearned to spend time with her loved one. The lady recalled that Ardiel himself sometimes said that only his beloved was enough for him, emphasizing how much he valued his wife. The guy listened carefully to his wife's words, that it is normal to have, in addition to a loved one, other loved ones who also need to be taken care of. His face expressed deep understanding and reflection. Therefore, according to the lady, it would be wonderful if the aristocrat had even more dear people who could enrich his life with new colors and support expanding his circle of friends. Tsar thought differently, gently hugging his beautiful lover to him. It would be ideal for him if the maiden thought only of him and treasured him exclusively. Whispering softly, he admitted that he truly loved only his wife. The words were full of tenderness and devotion, as if every sound was imbued with deep feelings. Smiling, the lady remarked that it would be nice to have different reasons for living, as this could add depth and richness to everyday existence. Cupping her husband's face with gentle hands and looking into his eyes with excitement, the lady admitted that she had an important and long-held message in her heart that she wanted to convey to him. Xenia said she was happy to be with and follow the Duke to feel supported and loved, which filled her life with joy and meaning. Their faces became closer and closer, and deep inside, Tsar burned with the desire to become the only and most important person for his beloved. Together, they merged in a kiss that was full of passion and mutual affection. Their lips fused together, creating a moment filled with deep emotions and sensuality. The girl with the sword used a rainbow spell that combined acceleration and amplification, imbuing the movement with incredible speed and power. The Duke, standing with the blade in his hands, did not notice how the enemy disappeared in a bright flash of light, leaving him bewildered and confused by the sudden and mystical disappearance. The couple's swords collided with a deafening crack, creating a sound wave that shook the air and filled the space with intense energy. They were watched all this time by the aristocrat's subjects, watching every movement with admiration and anxiety, as if the events unfolding before their eyes could change their destinies. The lady stepped back, and dust remained on the ground, which rose in the clouds from her movement as evidence that she had taken a step back, leaving traces of her presence. Magic lights appeared next to her, flickering and pulsating, which the lady created to amaze her opponent with her power and magic. Tsar readied his blade, preparing to parry the attack. His decisive movement and focused gaze indicated that the guy was completely committed to defense and counterattack, relying on skill and strength. There was a loud explosion, and thick smoke filled the space as the two forces collided, creating a blinding light and deafening noise that shook the entire area. Xenia was glad that her attack was a success, filled with a sense of satisfaction and pride in her successful strategy, which brought results and strengthened her confidence in her own abilities. However, the husband stood as if nothing had happened, calm despite the destructive force of the attack and the explosion that occurred around them. It was amazing for the girl to realize that she had forced her husband to use her aura and magic. This realization filled me with pride and surprise. Joyfully, Xenia stated that she had achieved her goal for the day, expressing satisfaction that the efforts and plans had been successfully implemented. The husband, with a warm smile and pride, gave his wife a sincere compliment, emphasizing that the lady had become much stronger and would soon be able to surpass him. The man carefully covered the girl's shoulders, noticing that she was trembling from the cold, and tried to warm her, showing his tenderness and attention to comfort at this moment. The indignant court magician, with obvious dissatisfaction, told this cute couple to go somewhere else to coo clearly, not wanting to observe their manifestations of feelings in the current situation. Happy Xenia noted that it was important for the spouses to show care and support to each other, because it is these moments of tenderness that strengthen their connection and make the relationship even deeper and more meaningful. The lady caringly asked if she had hurt her husband during training, showing concern for his condition and concern for his well-being. From the outside, Tsar looked truly happy in the arms of his wife. The man's face expressed deep satisfaction and joy that he was next to her. The courtiers could only watch how this couple played the role of a happy family. Their interaction and manifestations of affection created a feeling of perfect harmony and mutual love. When Xenia said that she wanted to compete with someone else, it was like a lightning strike for the man, surprising him and instantly changing his mood. With a sad sigh, the man asked if the sweet and charming Duke was not enough for the lady to brighten up her loneliness and fill her life with joy. As a result, Tsar, worried and experiencing deep feelings, made a decision regarding his beloved, trying to take into account all her experiences and desires. Nodding, Xenia confidently stated that everything would be fine. However, she added that if her husband interfered with the training, the consequences could be quite unpleasant. The couple did not understand that the courtiers were discussing their intention to sort things out with the help of blades, which created the wrong impression of a real conflict. The guard's thoughts were focused on getting back to his wife as quickly as possible, while Whale stood irritably nearby, not hiding his displeasure. The knight and his mistress stood in front of the guard, discussing upcoming events, announcing that today they had planned new, exciting sparring sessions that would add spice to their training. The men were skeptical of the news when they learned that they would have to fight the Duchess. They doubted that fighting a lady of such high position would provide them with a worthy test. The ladies silently listened to the indignation of the guards, who believed that their commander simply wanted to teach them a lesson in this way for their lost uniform. Therefore, Xenia came forward, offering to start the battle as soon as possible, so as not to waste time on useless discussions and get straight to the point. Some time passed, and all the men were lying on the ground. Meanwhile, the strong aristocrat stood in front of the teacher, proudly boasting of her victory and showing off her achievements. With a smile, Xenia turned to the defeated, telling them to train harder, so that next time they could stand up to her skills and preparations. Noticing her husband among the spectators, the noble lady, with curiosity and slight surprise, asked him what he was doing here, whether he had come to carefully observe the intense sparring. The guy admitted that he was afraid how his wife would be tortured during training. To this, Senior replied with a smile that she coped with everything herself and did not need help. The guards became wary at the mention of the words about possible beheading uttered by the gentleman. They could not help but fear the Duchess and her outstanding strength. Orton also felt disappointed with his small army, which did not live up to expectations and did not show the effectiveness and resilience he had hoped for. The Duke asked if his beloved liked to attend performances, and she, with a smile and a warm look, replied that despite this, she would much rather spend the evening on a date. While the girl was worried about putting on her training uniform, Tsar reassured her by telling her that she could wear anything and it wouldn't interfere with her success. Local commoners looked back with curiosity at the strange pair of aristocrats. Their attention was attracted by the unusual and extravagant manner of behavior. Smiling sweetly, the man offered to choose a new dress for his beloved, allowing her not to worry about the choice and leaving this pleasant activity at her own discretion. Xenia gave her permission, asking her to choose something really beautiful so that her outfit would be as sophisticated and elegant as possible.